little bit calmer for these areas, but still quite a cold wind through much of the night and frequent showers across north and western areas. A bit more shelter further south and east, temperatures widely in the single figures. So it will be a chilly start to the day on Wednesday, but frost will be limited because we do still have quite a strong breeze around. And the winds will remain quite strong across northern areas of Scotland in particular. Some of these showers may start to fall as snow over parts of the Grampians as well, just over the highest mountains. That'll be the first snow we've seen in quite a few months. And some of the showers moving into northwestern areas of England, parts of Northern Ireland, could bring some hail, possibly some lightning and thunder. A drier start to the day, though, for more southern and eastern areas of the UK. But as we head towards lunchtime, cloud will develop further inland, and some of these showers could spread into parts of more southern and central areas of England, as well as eastern areas of Scotland into the afternoon. But I think the most frequent showers will continue, particularly across northwestern England, northern areas of Scotland and Northern Ireland, and it's going to feel cold as well. These are the maximum temperatures. Temperatures will feel closer to the single figures, though, with the strength of that northerly wind. Another chilly start to the day to come on Thursday. A frost potential as well, grass and air frost, and showers will be more frequent across more northern and eastern coasts as we head into Thursday afternoon. So a slightly drier day for some northwestern areas, but still some further showers to come. Looks a little bit drier and warmer by Friday, and turning a bit warmer into the weekend as well. Bye-bye.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark meets at My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there short and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it?
Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Good morning. Donald Trump and Kamala Harris take to the stage in their first televised presidential debate.
The former president attacks Harris on policy U-turns and blames Democrats for his assassination attempt.
Whilst the vice president claimed that Trump would have given up on Ukraine and takes him to task on abortion.
The cut to winter fuel payments passed in the Commons. Millions of pensioners are set to lose the benefit this year after attempts to block it failed in Parliament yesterday.
This comes as Labour's Justice Secretary reveals freed prisoners are set to be housed in taxpayer-funded hotels as part of the early release scheme.
And as Mel Stride is eliminated from the Tory leadership race, support for Kemi Badenoch and Robert Jenrick surges.
And were MPs right to vote for a cut to fuel benefit to pensioners? We'll be asking that in our breakfast debate this morning.
And in the sport this morning, perfect night for Harry Kane, scores both goals in his 100th game for England. Harry's old boss, Mauricio Pochettino, is announced as the new USA manager. And Arsenal won't be allowed to wear their red shirts in Sunday's North London derby, as they're too white.
Good morning. A cold wind and blustery showers for many of us today, but you can find out all the details with me a little later on.
It's just gone 6:01. I'm Isabel Webster.
And I'm Ben Leo, and this is GB News Breakfast.
I think it's fair to say there's a few bleary eyes in the newsroom this morning. It's been an all-nighter. This is, of course, because the huge debate taking place between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris took place overnight, 2 o'clock, about 2:30. The build-up started in the morning, and it was too late for any of the newspapers. They haven't touched on the story at all. But don't worry, we have all the juicy details for you from that first presidential debate.
Indeed. I'm a few coffees down already, not sure about you,
Yeah,
but
several shots in.
We'll make it, we'll survive. Let's have a look at some of the best moments, shall we?
She has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the end of our country.
I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formerly worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain. His former chief of staff, a 4-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States.
This is the one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy.
These dictators and autocrats are rooting for you to be president again because they're so clear they can manipulate you with flattery and favors.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there.
Well, there you go. Those are the highlights. 90 minutes that debate went on for. I have to say, probably failed to land any killer blows, either of them, really.
Yeah.
Whether or not it moved the dial or not, let's get the thoughts this morning of our correspondent, Stephen Edgington, who joins us from the States this morning. We know how razor-thin the margins are. This is going to come down to a few thousand voters in those swing states. How are things looking following on from that debate this morning?
Well, I think this was a tough night, frankly, for Donald Trump. He tended to ramble. He didn't always answer the question. And he was lured into several traps by Kamala Harris, who talked about things like his crowd size, people leaving his rallies. And he wasn't focused on the main message, which should have been her record as vice president. On the other hand, Vice President Harris, she had a pretty good night. She was pretty smooth. She came across as well prepared in many of the moments. And she was more focused on the policy issues. Certainly, this was one of the most extraordinary debates I think I've ever watched from a journalist's perspective. ABC and the news anchors seemed quite biased against Donald Trump at times. They fact-checked him constantly, but they never fact-checked Kamala Harris once. But Donald Trump did have some good moments. This wasn't a complete knockout for him. He landed some blows on Kamala, for sure. I don't think this is going to be changing the election result. I think this will probably help Kamala Harris, and she certainly wants another debate with Donald Trump. Whether he'll accept it, I think, is another question.
In the aftermath of the debate, Taylor Swift came out and endorsed Kamala Harris. Maybe the debate hasn't changed anything, but will Taylor Swift's endorsement perhaps influence the election at all?
These celebrity endorsements tend not to influence elections in the United States. In 2016, Hillary Clinton received endorsements from huge celebrity names, people like Jay-Z, and she would go around campaigning and rallying with these big celebrity names, and they didn't really make an impact. So I think most people know that celebrities and kind of these big media figures are generally behind the Democrats. Hollywood is a very liberal, Democrat-focused industry. So I suspect that Taylor Swift's endorsement of Kamala Harris just after the debate won't be changing too many minds in America.
OK, Stephen Edgington in the States for us this morning. Thanks very much indeed. Let's get the thoughts now from the chair of the Republicans overseas, Greg Swenson, a regular on the channel. Always good to see you, Greg. You also have been up all night, so thank you very much for coming in to see us.
In spite
this is
of that.
actually former President Trump's 7th presidential debate, which is the highest number anyone has done in modern history. That said, you know, his experience all there, how do you think he fared? Stephen Edgington saying that it was a tough night for him.
I think it was. In many ways, I think it was a missed opportunity. You know, he had some winners, and he hit a few good points, but he could have gone a little further. He could have articulated them better, and that was the problem. He was right on many things, but he failed to really articulate and make it clear that Kamala Harris's policies and outcomes, her record, is really a disaster, and yet he didn't really talk about that. You know, he kept saying, you know, you're a failure and it's the worst vice president ever. I mean, so the rhetoric was there, but he didn't have the specifics. I had hoped he would stick to the policies. He's polling up 10 to 20 points over Kamala on inflation and the economy and the border. He should have just leaned on that all the time. He did complain a lot about the border, but he didn't articulate it well.
And it did kind of feel like, Greg, that he walked into her trap. She was goading him about the size of his rallies, and you could see it ignited him inside. He kind of let his ego get in the way a bit.
He really failed to control himself, and I think that was a mistake. And she, you know, he took the bait. She kind of won on points. You know, there was no knockout. She didn't really get into her policy argument very much. How could she? You know, her policies have been a failure, right? If you look at the big ones, the border, inflation, you know, saying toward the end, we're going to bring down the cost of living. Well, why haven't you been doing that for 3.5 years? And Trump did point that out toward the end. So I think there were a lot of flaws in Vice President Harris's arguments, but he didn't manage that well.
That being said, did the night change anyone's opinion of Trump? I'd say probably not, whereas actually a lot of people didn't know what they thought of Kamala Harris, whether she would be able to withstand the kind of scrutiny, the pressure that the moment required. And, you know, your Republicanism to one side, you know, she obviously showed her prosecutor credentials and looked very comfortable, didn't
she? I mean, she passed with flying colours on handling herself. She was very well rehearsed.
Shook his hand at the beginning, said, let's have a good debate.
Yeah, you know, and that was very cordial and, you know, good for her. So, look, she handled herself well. And again, she was very rehearsed. It looked sometimes a little fake, a lot of platitudes, but that's been working for her for the last 3 months. So she might just be sticking with that program.
One minor point I did pick up from Kamala Harris is just the constant smiling and smirking. Is that genuine, or was that her trying to kind of show
I think it was very well planned. I mean, you know, and she looked good. You know, Trump had that kind of cranky, angry look on his face. And, you know, it's fair to criticize what Biden and Harris have done to the country. It's totally fair. But you also have to have a little sunny optimism. You know, you have to look forward and say, yeah, we crushed it during my administration. We had peace and prosperity. Biden and Harris have been a failure. That's fair. But try to do it with a smile on your face once in a while.
I guess, Greg, Trump has always done well in debates, especially in the primaries of recent years, when he's made jokes which have just floored. For example, that one about Rosie O'Donnell, where Megyn Kelly, the moderator at the time, was trying to contain her laughter. Barbs at, for example, Jeb Bush as well. He seems to work best, as far as I remember, when he is saying things with a wry smile.
Especially with an audience, because he feeds off of that. There was no audience here. It was kind of dark. It just wasn't perfectly suited for President Trump. But again, I think, it's a missed opportunity. He should have done better.
Part of the drama of these American presidential debates is the spin room afterwards, and you have governors and you have running mates walking through and these sort of media scrums. It was really interesting seeing Vikesh Ramaswamy, who wanted to become the Republican candidate, didn't he? And he got knocked out by Trump. Actually, I think he landed more blows on Harris than Trump himself, and basically calling out the moderators, saying that it was a 3-against-1 debate, that actually the fact-checking was unfair. I mean, is it not the case that they didn't fact-check Harris because she wasn't needing correction? Or do you think there was some fairness in what
I think there was some, Trump likes hyperbole, right? So, they corrected him a few times. I don't necessarily think it was fair, but it's never fair. So, Republicans should be used to that, right? The media is not going to love you. And the moderators are typically from left-leaning networks. And that showed tonight. Was it a game changer? No. I think President Trump should have handled that better. And again, Kamala Harris, had some good moments.
She is getting some criticism this morning for saying the January 6th riots were the worst attack on American democracy since the Civil War. Bearing in mind today, Greg, is the anniversary of 9/11.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, she exaggerated a lot. I mean, I thought Trump's point at the end about, go down to the White House and close the border. Right? That's a really simple but effective line that he had. He probably should have talked about it more and talked about how, tied Kamala Harris into the border situation, the border crisis. So, look, I think this isn't a deal breaker. This isn't the end of the Trump campaign by any means. We're not going to have the dramatic outcome that we had on June 27th with Biden being pushed to the side. But it's a little speed bump. I'm glad that the election's not tomorrow, because even a little bit of a move can swing the election, given how close it is. But prior to the debate tonight, 61% of Americans were advocating for major change, and 53% think that Trump represents major change, and only 25% thinks that Harris presents major change. I don't know that changed with the debate tonight.
Right, interesting. This was the first time they went head-to-head. Do you think it could be the last, or might we see them go head-to-head again?
It probably will be the last, but, things could change. I mean, if I were Trump, I would say, let's do it again. But I would do it differently.
OK.
Thanks, Greg.
Yeah, thank you. Chair of Republicans Overseas, regular on the programme. Greg, thanks very much. I'm going to get some sleep if you can. I don't know if you can, but
thanks, Ben.
Good luck to you.
OK, right, can't wait until November. Weeks away now, aren't we?
Yeah.
Exciting times. Right, over to UK politics now, because millions of pensioners, of course, will lose their winter fuel payments this year after an attempt to block the cuts failed in Parliament yesterday. That said, though, a total of 53 Labour MPs abstained on the vote. The Prime Minister defending the cut, calling it a tough decision needed to tackle the £22 billion deficit. This comes as Labour's Justice Secretary reveals freed prisoners are set to be housed in taxpayer-funded hotels as part of the early release scheme. And that story dominates the front pages this morning. GBNews political correspondent Olivia Utley joins us now. Olivia, we were just admiring these front pages before we came on air. Not good optics, is it, in terms of the early prisoner release? But Labour also dealing with this winter fuel saga as well.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday was one of the most difficult days of Keir Starmer's premiership so far. In the morning, you had these prisoners coming out of prison, popping their champagne corks and saying things like, "I'll be back." Lots of them saying outright that they don't feel that they've been rehabilitated. And obviously, you only need one prisoner who's been released earlier than they should have been to commit some dreadful atrocity before the spotlight is very, very much on Keir Starmer's policy to release prisoners early. And what makes matters worse is that some domestic abusers have been released early. Keir Starmer said that that wasn't going to happen, but it's all got confused in the rush to get this done by September the 10th. And one woman whose husband nearly killed her has now been told that he was released yesterday. Then at the same time, you've got this pretty major rebellion over the winter fuel vote. It looked as though there were going to be about 50 MPs weren't happy with the proposal to cut winter fuel payments to all but those on pension credits. Labour managed to contain the rebellion in terms of the number of Labour MPs who voted against the motion. In fact, in the end, there was only one. But there were 53 MPs who abstained. Now, that is a pretty big rebellion. Lots of those MPs were given permission not to be there. But according to Labour MPs I've spoken to, that's just because the whips were running around saying, if you have any reason not to be here, please don't be here. So basically, they were all just abstaining. That is really, really awkward for Keir Starmer. And it just reminds us that although he does have this enormous majority, most of his MPs don't really feel as though they owe the Labour leader their seats in the same way that perhaps in 1997 Labour MPs felt that it was Blair who had won them the election. They don't really feel like that about Keir Starmer. Labour was popular because the Conservatives were so unpopular, but the Labour leader himself isn't that popular at all, and I think that's what we saw reflected yesterday.
It's shocking. Just going back to the optics of the prisoners with the champagne being sprayed. One of the prisoners being released said, "Oh, thank you, Keir Starmer, will be voting Labour for the rest of my life," and another one getting into a Lamborghini and disappearing off into the sunset. And then you've got all of these Labour MPs, you know, really undermining Keir Starmer's authority. You've got people like Carol Vorderman, who's been calling for a Labour government for years on the airwaves, and now coming out and saying this is a disgrace. Not only are you betraying victims of domestic abuse, but you're doing this. And all the while, the Conservatives are failing to land any major blows. They really need to get this leadership contest out the way, don't they? Do you think they were right to do it more slowly this time? Because here we are, still talking about knocking out just one more candidate, and it's going to be rolling on till after, I think, the American election or thereabouts.
It does feel as though it's dragging on and on and on. I think the final decision will be made on the 2nd of November, so months after the election. You could sort of see their logic for it. I spoke to lots of Conservative MPs who said that our problem in the past has been rushing these things, and that's how we got someone like Liz Truss into power. And one of the good things, in a way, about being in opposition is there isn't quite so much pressure on them to find themselves a new leader. That said, we basically know the policies of all of these people. They've all been in the cabinet or very, very close to the cabinet. They've been around for years. Most of them have stood in previous leadership races. What's the point in dragging it out for so long? And also, I think what makes it quite tricky is that the voting on this Conservative leadership race is still very, very split. In the first round, no candidate managed to get 25% of the vote. And still, I mean, Robert Jenrick is the favourite, but it is all very, very, very split. And I think that sort of undermines whoever ends up being leader. It doesn't feel as though they have the massive support of their party behind them. Robert Jenrick won yesterday with 33 votes.
Mel Stride, of course, was knocked out, but he was getting loads of plaudits last night saying, I mean, Harry Cole from The Sun said a new star is born. Others suggesting that he'd be given a shadow chancellor role to whoever wins the leadership contest. Can you see that happening? Do you think Mel Stride's star is rising?
Well, I have to say, I watched him do his speech yesterday opposing the winter fuel cuts as Shadow Work and Pensions Secretary, and it was a very, very good speech. He was the minister who was wheeled out the most during the general election campaign. He's quite a good TV performer. I think you've both probably interviewed him quite a few times. I reckon he probably does have a chance of a very good job in the shadow cabinet, if not shadow chancellor, then but perhaps another big role. Of course, it all a bit depends on who wins that all-important leadership election on the 2nd of November.
Good stuff. Thanks very much. Appreciate it, Livia.
Let's have a look at some of the other stories coming into the newsroom this morning.
Well, as we've been discussing this morning, after the prisoner release yesterday, news today that thousands could be placed in taxpayer-funded hotels as more than 1,700 inmates have walked free in an effort to cut overcrowding in our jails. The Justice Secretary says that probation staff have been authorised to use these budget hotels if needed after concerns were raised about reoffending because some inmates were unprepared and face homelessness.
And elsewhere, the UK, along with France and Germany, have announced fresh sanctions on Iran for supplying Russia with ballistic missiles. Part of the sanctions will include restrictions on Iran's air ability to fly to the UK and to Europe. And it comes amid US Secretary of State Antony Blinken's trip to the UK, where he confirmed Iran has sent short-range ballistic missiles to Russia and predicts they'll be used in Ukraine within a matter of weeks. Blinken gave the warning after strategic talks with the Foreign Secretary in London, David Lammy, aimed at boosting the special relationship between the two nations.
The King and Queen are to fly to Australia and Samoa for the first long-haul overseas tour since his cancer diagnosis. They'll be joining world leaders at a major Commonwealth summit running from the 18th to the 26th of October, and it will include a review of the Australian Naval Fleet in Sydney Harbour, as well as meetings with political leaders and 2 award-winning cancer experts.
And 4 private astronauts have launched into space on a SpaceX rocket, kicking off the Polaris Dawn mission. The 5-day journey will test new spacesuits and feature the first private spacewalk, with astronauts tethered to the spacecraft in the mission's riskiest manoeuvre so far. The mission marks a significant step in private space exploration, taking the crew further from Earth than anyone since the Apollo moon programme.
See, I don't know you well enough to know how you feel about space exploration.
Love it.
Do you?
In actual fact, on Sunday, my wife and I went to a talk in Brighton with Tim Peake.
Yes, I've
UK
interviewed him,
astronaut.
and he's one of my favourite interviewees
nice
of
guy?
all time. Just such a fascinating story. Yeah, what did you think of him?
Yeah, amazing. Really good talker, actually, for an astronaut. He was seemed very media trained. He delivered a really good sort of seminar on the history of astronauts and space exploration. I love it. And my boy Jude, his middle name is Apollo.
Is it?
Yeah, I tried to wrangle it as his first name, but my wife said absolutely no way. But he was born on the 50th anniversary of the Apollo 11 moon landing.
There you go. So you are into space exploration.
Into it, yeah.
But, you know, just in the last few weeks, we've been talking about those 2 astronauts who were stuck up there longer than intended. And if you actually look up how old Tim Peake is, he's a lot younger than you might think, but he's aged so much because of the time that he spent in space. Personally, you couldn't give me enough money to make me do private space exploration. I'm just not interested, but, you know...
That leads me on to my next question.
Yeah.
I ask everybody, if you could go to Mars and become one of the first humans to colonise Mars, akin Neil Armstrong on the moon, would you do it if you knew you weren't going to come back?
No.
No, I would. See, I would.
What?
I'd love to go down in history as similar to Neil Armstrong, as the first person to colonise a new
Leave your
planet.
family behind.
Well, hopefully they'd come with me if they're up for it.
What? You poor children. Oh, no.
Think of humanity, Isabel.
Oh, no. Oh, not for me. What about you at home? Let us know this morning. Good debate, gbnews.com/YouSay. Do you fancy a little trip to Mars? Not for me.
I love space that much. Anyway, should we shift gears slightly? Yeah.
Yeah, so Labour's first budget is approaching, as we've been discussing, and businesses across the country are fearful that those with the most assets could be hit the hardest.
The average age of a farmer in the UK is 63, but many don't even achieve the minimum wage. If death duties return to family businesses, many may not survive, as our Northern Ireland reporter Doogie Beattie reports.
Sam Hanna is a third-generation farmer who will eventually take over the business. But to stay competitive, he has had to put in substantial investment.
Milking parlour, buildings and all would have been 300 to 350,000. We've invested, had a loan for 100,000 on it to try to improve the farm, make it more economic and more beneficial towards us going forward. We already pay our income tax each year, and our assets are also included in our income tax each year. So if we have more assets or more stock or more machinery, it's all taken into our tax bill. So if we're going on till an inheritance tax or go in that direction, why should we be paying tax on stuff that's already been taxed every year?
In 1974, Harold Wilson scraped into power. He immediately settled with the unions, but to pay the bill, he introduced the capital transfer tax, designed to tax those with assets. Family businesses and farms were hit the hardest, and this drove up the price of food and hampered economic growth. In 1986, Thatcher's government reversed the policy. But if it returns, who will benefit the most?
If you find that small farms and farmers are going to have to sell off land, who's going to buy it? The people who want to be virtuous and say we're offsetting our carbon output by having trees planted on ground or buying land or whatever. It's big companies who are going to do that. Odd that a Labour government that says it wants to curtail big business and the worst aspects of big business could actually be, through its tax policy, the government that enhances the power of big business.
Many farmers get less than the minimum wage, and the return of death duties could be the final blow for these farming families.
If we had to pay an inheritance tax at the end, it would cripple it. It would. The money isn't there to do it. As I say, we're asset rich, cash poor, and if you take them assets away, you have no farm at the end of it.
Doogie Beattie, GB News, County Down.
Do give Easy there reporting.
Lots of farmers watch us, especially in the early hour of
really?
6 o'clock, because they're up, aren't they, up and at 'em. If this affects you, get in touch, let us know how you would feel, because, you know, so many farms, it makes us a green and pleasant land, doesn't it? We'd be lost without our farms. And yet, you know, inheritance tax, if it is brought in the budget, an increase there, it will have a huge disproportionate impact on the farming community.
The argument is, of course, so this is money that's already been taxed. The estates have been... You've worked hard all your life, you've paid income tax, maybe capital gains tax, and then when you pass and you want to pass on your hard graft to your kids, they tax it again. I mean, I think it's legalised theft, if you ask me, but... Anyway, very quick, your say, before we get to your weather, talking about colonising Mars. I don't know how we went down that rabbit hole.
Oh, really?
Well,
OK.
but, Robert said, would I go to Mars to colonise? Well, it depends if Labour is still in government. Very funny. David, you said, my brother was a moon baby born on July 21st, 1969, the year of the moon landing, of course. Dad wanted to call him Apollo, like Ben, but Mum wouldn't let him. Here, David. Great minds think alike.
I don't know what to say. I never came up with any original names. I went for William. I went for traditional for my son, but Apollo, I think, is a gorgeous name.
Marlene Clark, months after I was defeated with Apollo, Marlene Class of... Was she Hearsay?
Yes.
Yeah, she called her boy Apollo. So I said to my wife, see?
Trendsetter.
There you go.
There you go. Right, let's stick to another straightforward name, Annie Shuttleworth. She's got your forecast this morning.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update. A cold wind for many of us through today, blustery showers across northwestern areas and a chance of frost overnight tonight. So quite a cold theme to come through the next few days. We've got Arctic air brought in by this northerly wind. The wind's going to be particularly strong across northern areas of Scotland. The strongest winds, though, have moved away overnight. We will see frequent showers, particularly across northwestern areas of England, northern Scotland, where we could see some snow showers over parts of the Grampians as well. And the strength of the breeze will make it feel colder than it is. So highs of around 12 or 13 degrees in the north, 15 or 16 in the south, but feeling closer to single figures exposed to that breeze. Showers will continue into this evening as well, particularly across northern areas of Scotland. They'll really rattle through and bring a risk of hail and possibly some thunder and lightning for some of us. And as well as across parts of Northern Ireland, northwest England, and after a pretty dry start to the day across eastern areas, we could see some showers across these areas into this evening as well. But it does look that much drier across more southern areas of England. But that will lead to clear skies quite widely overnight tonight. Still a few showers pushing in across parts of Wales, northern areas of Scotland in particular. But where we see the clearest skies and some slightly more sheltered valleys, we could see a touch of air or grass frost by Thursday morning. But widely, temperatures will be down in single figures. So certainly another chilly start to the day on Thursday morning. Probably a slightly colder start tomorrow compared to today. And this northerly wind will continue to bring showers in through Thursday, but there will be more in the way of sunshine to start the day, particularly across many eastern and southern areas of the UK. Cloud will thicken as the day goes on, and a few showers will continue to develop, particularly across parts of Wales, northern areas of Scotland. It will be a somewhat drier day for northwestern England, but again, another chilly one with temperatures well below average for the time of year. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Right, this weather is properly depressing, isn't it? What is going on? It's only the beginning of September.
So cold this morning.
It's so cold.
So cold.
Anyway, this will cheer you up. The Great British Giveaway. And it is great. It's £36,000 in good, hard cash.
Yeah, that's the equivalent of having an extra, I think it's £3,000 a month, tax-free in your bank account for an entire year. What would you do if you were paying, or if you had that in your bank every year? I'd probably go on holiday and get some sunshine on my skin.
Pay off some your credit card debt, I don't know.
Yeah, we can't enter, unfortunately, so it's down to you at home to enter. Here's all the details you need to make it yours.
This is your chance.
Very good luck to you. Still to come, Paul has your sports, including England. They were playing Finland last night. Harry Kane grabbed a brace, and of course it's the Azerbaijan Formula 1 Grand Prix this weekend. This is GB News Breakfast with Ben and Isabel. Back in a tick.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Nana Queer, weekends from 3 p.m.
I'm now joined by a truly inspirational man. He's an endurance runner, Ben Smith. 401 marathons in just 401 days for mental health and well-being. He was spurned on after being bullied as a child, was able to raise a whopping £250,000. I'm pleased to say that he joins me now. Right, so this was a while ago, wasn't it?
Yes.
How long ago was it?
Well, we're coming up to, I think next year, roughly about 10 years since we started it. In 2026 will be 10 years since we finished.
So when did you run the marathons?
So it was between 2015 and 2016, over the course of 401 days, all around the UK.
What kind of madness was that?
Oh, it was an adventure, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, on day one when we started in Bristol, never ever thought that the project would ever become what it became. But over the course of the 401 days, we ran with 13,500 people within 8 miles of everywhere on the British mainland, from Land's End to John O'Groats. So,
and that was the journey from Land's End, John O'Groats?
Yeah. We covered so many different communities around the UK because I suppose the reason why I was doing it was to raise so much money for 2 anti-bullying charities that we wanted to include people in that. And yeah, I got to run in some amazing places.
I bet you did. What would you say is a beautiful place? I mean, the whole country, I love this country, but there are some outstanding, beautiful areas around. What would you say?
Oh, definitely.
Where's the best place that you run?
Well, I think I've got a few, but I think I would say probably the Highlands of Scotland.
I knew you would say someone like
that. Yeah, just the kind of vastness of it, the dramaticness of it. I remember running up and down one of the paths in the Highlands near Glencoe and coming face to face with a wild stag. So it was quite scary.
What did it do?
It did nothing. It did absolutely nothing. It was quite used to people because of the path.
What are you doing here? This is my house.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Everyone wants to talk about Harry Kane, Coitie's favourite. It was a brace for him, Mr.
It was a
Coit?
brace. So the score was England 2, Finland
0.
Well, nil. Yeah,
Oh,
you don't
sorry.
say 0.
Oh,
Not
sorry.
in football,
0
not
degrees,
0.
nil point.
Unless we're in
Got
the
it.
United States.
Oh, gosh.
It's 0. You know,
Okay.
but yeah. It was a perfect night for Harry. We were talking about Harry Kane yesterday. It was his 100th cap. He's had people that are having a go at him, especially with the World Cup and with the Euros, and saying, "Oh, he's not up to it." And this, he is a fantastic footballer. I know I'm even get bored with myself going on about it. So Ben, I'm sorry, but golden cap, he got golden boots. His daughters walked out with him. His son didn't come up because it was a little bit late and threw a bit of a wobbly and wasn't too happy to stand out in the rain. But Harry Kane, let's hear what Harry Kane had to say after the game, anyway.
As a striker, of course, on my 100th cap, I wanted to score a goal and make the night as memorable as possible, and to win the game as well. So to score, a couple of good goals, a couple of nice finishes, and help the team win 2-0 was pretty much perfect. So a proud night for me and the family, and now we can enjoy it.
But as we always say, that footballers never say anything. But you know where the blame is? It's with the questions. So if you say to Harry, obviously, a very good night for you, Harry, how do you feel about it? What else is he going to say? Apart from, score, but they were 2 great goals.
Some nice pictures of Harry with his wife there and his 2 kids. How many kids has he got? Do you know?
Yeah, there's 3. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
They look like a lovely family. I'm a sucker for families.
I know.
I'm a sucker for a family as well. We're all sucker for a family, but Harry, yeah, very tight family. I mentioned that yesterday, and no, it's always has them there. And when he scores, he always kisses his wedding ring as well.
Stop.
Yeah, he does that as well.
That's so nice.
Yeah, yeah. See, that's the thing, is that I guess it wouldn't happen with Harry, but any other player, if they do that, and if there's any other trouble, then if you see that stops.
I keep losing mine.
Do you really?
Yeah.
How do I feel about that? What are you doing taking a wedding?
It's quite clunky, so it's a bit... Anyway, enough about me. Lee Carsley, he's been doing very well, hasn't he? I was calling for him to be sacked amid the anthem role, but 2 out of 2.
So how are you feeling now? Are you OK? Are you over the anthem?
Do you want me to be honest?
No, I want you to lie.
OK. I can't lie.
The fact that he's got 2 wins means you can't forgive him over the anthem.
No, the fact that he doesn't sing it, he respects it, Ben. He does respect, he stands. It's just because he doesn't.
No, the truth is, I just don't care enough about international football, to be honest.
Oh, right, OK, fair enough.
Arsenal, for me, club before country, so
you know what?
I don't care that much.
A lot of us are the same, and the thing is, it's all looking very good with Lee Carsley. The win against the Republic of Ireland, win against Finland. Yeah. But all the managers do that. It seems that every England manager has that. It's when you get to tournament football. That's when it really counts.
I mean, is this not technically tournament football, the Nations League?
I wouldn't say it's...
Is it like the League Cup?
Technically, it kind of is, but it's not really... when I say tournament football, I mean actually when you go to the World Cup finals, to the Euros. That's when it really matters, and that's when the big games happen, and that's when you really can tell whether this manager or whether the team is any good. Because we usually win these. We usually win qualifiers. We usually win things in the Nations League when we're playing at home. So it's difficult to tell, but all I can say about him is that he seems to be playing exciting, attacking football and doing the things that we wanted Gareth Southgate to do for. So it's all good.
What about the US men's football new coach?
Maurizio Pochettino. Yeah, Maurizio Pochettino. So it's Harry Kane's old boss at Spurs. Maurizio Pochettino has now taken over as the USA manager. This was being talked about for a while. So he was announced yesterday, which is also interesting because Emma Hayes is the women's USA manager.
Talking of Emma Hayes, sorry, finish that point.
Both were at Chelsea at the same time.
Did you see that interview with Emma Hayes? I think it was in The Telegraph, comparing herself to Alex Ferguson.
Right.
Did you see that?
No.
Alex Ferguson's a big fan of hers, though, in her defence.
Is he?
Yeah.
I haven't seen that.
He says she's brilliant. I heard a really interesting interview with her, actually, on Women's Hour. I was driving last week. And she's an impressive character.
She is.
She seems to get plaudits from across the board. And sorry to go off on one about women's football, but she was talking about how in every single walk of life, whether it's a surgeon, a lawyer, whatever it might be, you have women at the top of the game.
Yep.
But you can't have female coaches managing an all-male team. Why not?
Yes.
And she said it's down to the owners of the clubs, not the players. She said the players wouldn't have a problem with whoever's the best. They want the best.
I was at a football awards about 3 or 4 years ago, and I was just walking around, and Emma Hayes this is absolutely true. Emma Hayes came up to me, and she said, "Coach, I just want to say hello." and I was like, "You're Emma Hayes?" And she goes, "I just want to say, I'm a huge Tottenham Hotspur fan, and it's really lovely to meet you." And she goes, "Not many people know that. I try and keep it." And because she was Chelsea manager, but she kept it sort of under the radar for all these years.
Oh, my goodness. And you've just broken her cover.
I said, "Sorry, Emma, I ain't got time. I'm too busy." But anyway, she's terrific. But Maurizio Pochettino then has taken over. This is interesting. The US sporting director, Matt Crocker, has said Maurizio is a serial winner, although he's not actually won anything. So that's interesting, but with a deep passion for player development and a proven ability to build cohesive and competitive teams. But it's a good time to be in the States because that's where the World Cup's going to be.
Oh, OK.
Oh, he's quite stylish as well.
Oh, yeah, and he's a lovely
Silly point, but I remember him being, quite suave on the sidelines.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of like Jose Mourinho's protégé.
Well,
in the fashion stakes, at least.
He's a good guy. He's a very nice fella. I also want to mention the North London derby.
Of course you do.
Now, the North London derby, obviously, we've got the red side of the desk and the white side of the desk. But what is interesting is that for the first time, this is in about 38 years, Arsenal will not be wearing their red shirts at the game at Spurs, because usually they don't clash. You've got Spurs in white, you have Arsenal in red. So it's always an amazing sight when they both come out for the North London derby. Everybody's pumped up. Everybody's feeling very nervous about it. So the reason for this is that with the new Arsenal shirts, there's too much white down the side. So you've got the PGMOL, who look after all the referees, and the Premier League have spoken about this and said, actually, they're clashing. So Arsenal, for the first time in goodness knows how long, will be wearing black shirts for the game. I mean, for crying out loud.
Ridiculous.
Are they really going to clash? They've said, well, maybe we'll wear red shorts and red socks, and they've said, no, that's not enough. They clash. So the same thing is going to happen then when the game's at the Emirates, that Spurs will have to weather away kits. And for the whole spectacle...
You're just killing one of the most exciting fixtures of the season. I know it's not a massive deal. OK, wear a different kit. In actual fact, Arsenal's third kit, the blue one, is fantastic.
But can you imagine wearing a blue kit at Spurs?
I know.
Really?
I know. And I remember, was it Fergie back in his United days where they were losing at half-time and he got them to change kits and they came out and thumped, was it?
I think it was Palace. And then I remember they were grey, and I think Eamonn still has one of those shirts that he was gifted because they were saying that the players couldn't see them. But the other
put some different shorts or socks on.
Well, you'd think so, wouldn't you? Surely you'd recognise your other players, but... You know, with all the... But anyway...
World's gone mad, Paul.
It is, and so it's going to be the first North London derby that way. And also, it's not a... You know, it's a little worry for Arsenal because their two best players, Declan Rice is out, who, by the way, they checked that dodgy yellow card that he was given against Brighton, which I still think was unfair, which got him sent off, which I can't argue as a Spurs fan because it means he's going to miss the game. So that was checked, and then it was decided that no, that's got to be kept. So that was so he's not going to be able to play. And Martin Ødegaard, another terrific player that Arsenal have got, was injured playing for Norway and was limped off.
Yeah, Crocs. And the player who injured him came out and apologised on Instagram. Said, very sorry, Arsenal fans, for crocking your best player, but...
Yeah, but there you go. Breaks. So how does that make you feel? A little nervous about?
He says hopefully.
After the Brighton game, I've just kind of given up already.
Oh, now,
the league is against us.
I can't.
Right, these two could talk about that derby all day long. I'm going to have to interrupt you with love. We'll see you a little bit later on Coity, thank you. But we have to welcome in Norman Baker and Renee Handekamp in just a moment to take us through the papers. A quick break first. See you in a sec.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In South Ayrshire, the A77 is closed in both directions at Cairn Ryan after a vehicle caught fire. Diversions via the A75 and the A714. There are delays and some cancelled Tyne and Wear metro services between South Gosforth and Hilton because of a signalling problem. In County Durham, the A66 is closed eastbound from Elton to the Preston Farm roundabout at Stockton-on-Tees for an investigation. In Flintshire, the A541 is closed in both directions between Reedermoyne and Mould after an accident. On the M25 in Buckinghamshire, two lanes are closed anti-clockwise just after junction 16 for the M40 after an accident causing 2 miles of queues. And in Somerset, the A370 is closed off junction 21 of the M5 at Weston-super-Mare after an accident last night. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tune in to Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. GB News royalty with your perfect start to the weekend. Lucky us. Feisty and fearless guests.
Well, I'm a normal person, so ask me.
Honest opinions that raises more questions than a Gary Barlow tax return. And a few surprises along the way. Might be cold in this studio. That is Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. 8 to 9, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Right, let's take a look at the newspaper front pages. Just a reminder, though, these all went to press before the big debate over in the States, so much of it focusing on yesterday's news, as you'd expect. Let's look at the Daily Mail. To kick things off, they're leading with who voted for all this as freed inmates celebrated their early release from prison by soaking themselves in, you got it, champagne.
Oh, my gosh. The optics. The Times reports that Kyiv will get the go-ahead to strike deep into Russia as the UK could give the go-ahead for cruise missile attacks within a matter of weeks.
Here's the Eye. It says Starmer and Reeves are to push ahead with the cuts after facing down rebel MPs. That's winter fuel payments.
The Daily Mirror reports good news, but there's still a long way to go. That's as Prince William begins his first engagement since the Princess of Wales announced she had finished chemotherapy.
And the Daily Star is leading with Mr. and Mrs. Smithy as fans spot filming of the very last Gavin and Stacey episode.
Joining us now to go through what's making the news today is GP and medical writer Dr Renee Honderkamp and former Liberal Democrat minister and Home Office superstar, Eamonn. I remember you from my local newspaper days, of course. Always very kind, giving me interviews. And you were serving on the Nick Clegg, weren't you?
I was. Transport Minister for 3.5 years and Home Office Minister for a year and a bit.
Good. Well, I'm glad you're with us now to go through all of the day's stories. What should we kick off with?
Well, let's start, shall we, with this debate. I know it's not in the newspapers, but I feel like it is the top topic of the day. Norman, I suppose the smart money this morning probably, from an impartial point of view, is that Kamala Harris was able to sort of reach beyond her base, Trump perhaps still speaking just to his base. Therefore, yes, she gained more from it than him.
Well, I mean, I think the strategy that she has to have to win the election is to detach from the Republican base those Republican voters who don't like Donald Trump, of which there are quite a few. And if she can persuade them that she's moderate and sensible and rile him up as she did and make him look petulant and bad-tempered, then some of those people may come across. You know, there's a solid phalanx of people who are going to vote for Trump and a solid phalanx going to vote for her, and it's about the little bit in the middle that has to be swayed. So I think probably, on the balance of last night, she did pretty well. I mean, she avoided being questioned on areas where she's weak, and she put things back to him, and he ended up defending pretty much indefensible.
Norman, do you think that there really are Republicans who will vote Democrats? Surely that's like Tory voters going to Labour. It's such a complete polarisation of philosophies and, you know...
Well, it depends on the circumstances. I mean, you ended up with, for example, Ken Clarke in this country voting Lib Dem and getting expelled from the Tory party or having a whip withdrawn because of Brexit. So these things happen. You got Cheney, who was, leading Republican figure in the Bush administration, saying he's going to vote for Kamala Harris, coming out publicly and saying that. So these things do happen.
Or perhaps it just encourages the Republican vote to stay home. They might never be able to vote Democrat, but it could make them sort of switch off from their candidate.
That's a British response. At the last election, a lot of Tory voters stayed at home rather than vote for anybody else.
Renee, thoughts?
Yeah, I think it was really interesting from the little bit that I've seen that she was very polished and she stuck to script. She was obviously very well rehearsed. And sadly, he wasn't. I mean, he enabled her to get under his skin. And I guess that's him being more true to himself than she was. But when people are watching that on TV, I think you're right. From an impartial point of view, I think Kamala probably comes out on top. I don't think what we saw is him unpicking some of her policies. And much of the stuff that she said has been, fact checked. Thank you. Fact checked this morning to be rubbish, and some of the stuff that he says, obviously. And he goes to areas that he doesn't need to go to. Why did he need to talk about people eating cats and dogs? I mean, it's just unnecessary. It looks crazy.
Well, I think the 15-second clip that was clipped up online made him look like an absolute nutter talking about that. But his wider point was there's a town in Ohio, Springfield, where a population of about 60,000, where 20,000 Haitian migrants have gone in, and he's alleging that, you know, the fabric of society's changed.
Yeah, but the stuff about eating pets has not been backed up by any of the local authorities at all, even if there are problems with integration of the community there. So, as you say, it hasn't served any purpose.
And I think even if that were true, maybe one or two incidents, just don't say it, because he looks... It made him look like a nutter.
Oh dear. Should we focus on home politics? Never any nutters there. 50 Labour MPs defied Starmer. Now, they didn't vote against the government, their own party, but abstaining in the numbers that they did, Renee, I suppose is a real threat, not threat, but perhaps undermining of Keir Starmer's authority so early on in his premiership.
So, actually only 12 abstained without permission, and one voted against, John Trickett, one brave Labour MP. I actually think they're all cowards, and I really do, because what they were voting for last night, and I say this as a doctor who sees it in my practice every winter, is they voted to kill old people, because old people will die because of this policy. And those Labour MPs should have been brave enough to actually come out and vote against it, as many of them wanted to. And I asked Norman, actually, as a politician, I said, you know, losing the whip, is it really that bad? Because I know that if I were a politician, I would have voted against it. I would have risked losing the whip, and I would have slept well at night, knowing that I hadn't voted for something that I didn't believe in. This is not a Labour policy. And to say that they had no choice, of course they had a choice. They made the choice. They made the choice between the unions and the train drivers and old people. And I think it's disgraceful, and I think they're embarrassing.
Has John Trickett had the whip removed?
Well, he will do, I think, if he's on his own.
Well, last time that was so swift, I was expecting to hear instantly what their decision was.
They will.
And just coming back to Renee's point about how big a deal is it to have the whip removed, the 7 that had the whip removed over child benefit was only for 6 months, and you get the sense that that's not the same as, you know, under Boris getting rid of all of those that voted to remain. There was no way back for them after that.
No, well, I mean, I think, look, what he was trying to do, Starmer, with the earlier rebellion was to make sure people didn't rebel again. And in that sense, he's been successful, because there's only one person rebelling last night and the rest of them abstained. They could take action against those who abstained without permission if they want to do that. There's a balance to be struck in party management. If you get too robust on these matters, then you alienate the backbenchers far too early in the Parliament. You have to have a bit of flexibility. And I have to say, in my party, Lib Dems, we're far more relaxed about these matters. People have got more of a conscience and are able to express that more.
More liberal.
Yes, more liberal in their votes, and for these matters don't arise in the same way.
I actually wonder if it makes him stronger. I think it looks like he's got tight party discipline, and going forward, I think many of his MPs will...
But in terms of the electorate, Norman, and you're the best person to answer this question, some people are suggesting this is Labour's student fees fiasco, akin, you know, a la the Lib Dems.
Well, it's been badly handled. Look, I mean, just neutrally, if you like, there are ways of selling the policy which they haven't used. First of all, it should have been part of the budget as a whole, rather than pulled out as one individual policy to be attacked. Secondly, it could have been presented as saying, well, the triple lock has replaced this because it was introduced to winter fuel payment before the triple lock. The triple lock has now overcome that, and they already won't agree with that financially.
Put it in the manifesto, perhaps?
It wasn't in the manifesto. It could have been in the manifesto. So there are ways you could have handled this, but it wasn't handled at all well. It's been isolated as an issue. It's been badly communicated, and they're paying the price for it.
OK. Question for you, Isabel. Do you snore?
No.
No.
Luckily. Do you?
No.
OK, but those who do snore or have a partner that snores, it's absolutely awful, I believe. Ruins marriages. I reckon, Norman, you might be a snorer.
Well, I wouldn't like to say.
That's a yes. Well, there's good news for you this morning, Norman. This is on the front of the Times. Dr Renee, no better person to talk to us about it.
No better person. Once again, we're medicalising something that is not a medical condition.
And popping pills for it.
And popping pills. That actually is an anti-epilepsy pill, so it affects what your brain does. And actually, in the trial, all of the people on the trial had obstructive sleep apnoea. Do you know what makes obstructive sleep apnoea better?
Losing weight.
Losing weight. So once again, we're going to medicalise something that somebody could control. I'm not saying that every single person who loses weight won't snore, but lots of them would lose it. And I'm just tired of more and more medication, more and more medicalisation, and more cost to the NHS.
Well, also, you know, when I think of Ozempic, it's actually meant that those who actually need it for proper medical grounds can't get their hands on it. Could that happen if this is suddenly the, you know, panacea for
this is a
snorers,
trial.
then the epileptics can't
This
get
is a
their
drug
drugs.
that's used in children that have epilepsy. And now we're going to give it to people
dear.
who have sleep apnea, possibly because they've eaten too much.
Yeah, Norman?
Well, the pharmaceutical industry is very happy, isn't it? Because everything that goes wrong in the world, they have an answer to it. Their profits get boosted, and the alternatives, which are whether it's losing weight or more exercise, or dare I say herbal remedies or whatever it happens to be, they all get pushed out the window.
So my sister's husband snores so badly that when I stayed with them in Australia and they were on the top floor at the other end of the house, it used to wake me up. And I said, how on earth do you sleep next to him? She said, I go to sleep before him and then it doesn't wake me up.
Oh, my goodness,
Yeah,
what
it can
a lie.
destroy marriages. Thank you both, Norman, Renee. Let's get your weather update with Annie Shuttleworth.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update. A cold wind for many of us through today, blustery showers across northwestern areas and a chance of frost overnight tonight. So quite a cold theme to come through the next few days. We've got Arctic air brought in by this northerly wind. The wind's going to be particularly strong across northern areas of Scotland. The strongest winds, though, have moved away overnight. We will see frequent showers, particularly across northwestern areas of England, northern Scotland, where we could see some snow showers over parts of the Grampians as well. And the strength of the breeze will make it feel colder than it is. So highs of around 12 or 13 degrees in the north, 15 or 16 in the south, but feeling closer to single figures exposed to that breeze. Showers will continue into this evening as well, particularly across northern areas of Scotland. They'll really rattle through and bring a risk of hail and possibly some thunder and lightning for some of us. And as well as across parts of Northern Ireland, northwest England, and after a pretty dry start to the day across eastern areas, we could see some showers across these areas into this evening as well. But it does look that much drier across more southern areas of England. But that will lead to clear skies quite widely overnight tonight. Still a few showers pushing in across parts of Wales, northern areas of Scotland in particular. But where we see the clearest skies and some slightly more sheltered valleys, we could see a touch of air or grass frost by Thursday morning. But widely, temperatures will be down in single figures. So certainly another chilly start to the day on Thursday morning. Probably a slightly colder start tomorrow compared to today. And this northerly wind will continue to bring showers in through Thursday, but there will be more in the way of sunshine to start the day, particularly across many eastern and southern areas of the UK. Cloud will thicken as the day goes on, and a few showers will continue to develop, particularly across parts of Wales, northern areas of Scotland. It will be a somewhat drier day for northwestern England, but again, another chilly one with temperatures well below average for the time of year. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In South Ayrshire, the A77 is closed each way at Cairn Ryan after a vehicle caught fire. Diversions via the A75 and A714. In Fermanagh, the A32 is closed each way along Forthill Street off the A4 Dublin Road in Enniskillen for an investigation. The M6 in Lancashire is partly blocked southbound by an accident northeast of Preston between junctions 31A and 31 from Longridge to Samlesbury. Slope towards and past there. In Flintshire, the A541 is closed each way between Leigh Moyne and Mould after an accident yesterday afternoon. And in Somerset, the A370 is closed in both directions between junction 21 of the M5 at Weston-super-Mare and Mays Green Lane at Hewish after an accident last night. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
There's an incredible band. Good luck.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's Live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's Live here on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Very good morning to you. Donald Trump and Kamala Harris take to the stage in the first televised presidential debate.
Well, the former president attacked Harris on policy U-turns and blamed Democrats for his assassination attempt.
Right, I've done my three.
Whilst the vice president claims Trump would have given up on Ukraine and takes him to task on abortion.
Not. Quite deliberately. I make a
Here
point.
in the UK, the cut to fuel payments passed in the Commons. Millions of pensioners are now set to lose the benefit this year after attempts to block it failed in Parliament.
And this comes, of course, as Labour's Justice Secretary reveals freed prisoners are set to be housed in taxpayer-funded hotels as part of the early release scheme.
As Mel Stride's eliminated from the Tory leadership race, support for Kemi Badenoch and Robert Jenrick has surged.
And were MPs right to vote for a cut to fuel benefit to pensioners? We'll be asking that in our breakfast debate shortly.
And sports news this morning, Harry Kane got his 65th and 66th England goals last night in his 100th England game with his golden cap and his golden boots. Aston Martin have got their man, Adrian Newey, the former Red Bull car designer, joins them in March. And in cricket, Essex could lose the county championship because of a bat. It's too wide.
Good morning. A cold wind and blustery showers for many of us today, but you can find out all the details with me a little later on.
It's just gone 7 o'clock. I'm Isabel Webster.
And I'm Ben Leo, and this is GB News Breakfast.
So it was a big night in the United States. We were thinking there might be fireworks. There was much anticipation. Bit of a damp squib, in my opinion, after all of that. Neither of them failing to land a killer blow. What did you make of it all?
Trump probably lost on points, I reckon. But as you said, nobody really came out all guns blazing. Donald Trump, I guess the accusations are he kind of walked into Kamala's trap. She was goading him about the size of his rallies, which seemed to get him a little miffed. But let's take a look at some of the best moments.
She has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the end of our country.
I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formerly worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain. His former chief of staff, a four-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States.
This is the one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy.
These dictators and autocrats are rooting for you to be president again because they're so clear they can manipulate you with flattery and favors.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there.
What did you make of that? That's going to be cuts and memes and clips for years and years to come.
It's going to be. It already has. It's going viral. Actually, off the back of the debate, Taylor Swift came out and endorsed Warrior Harris, as she described her. Was that a big surprise? I mean, she's a well-known Democrat, isn't she, really? Let's get the thoughts this morning of the chair of Republicans overseas, Greg Swenson. And Greg, you know, actually, you've been very impartial in your view this morning that actually probably Trump lost on points last night.
Yeah, it was not a great night for President Trump, and I think he could have done much better. So it was a missed opportunity, and it's really a shame because he's right on so many of the points that he tried to to bring up or he brought up in a clumsy way. So he's right on them. And he's especially right on the biggest issues for Americans. And so if he just stayed on point and articulated better, I think it would have been a much more successful night for him. So he took the bait from Kamala Harris. You know, every time she threw it out there, he jumped on it, and it worked. I think her little kind of debate trickery was successful.
Seems like he got distracted by her games, and fair play to her. But I wanted to see from Trump more of, I mean, Kamala talking about we need change, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. I wanted to hear more of Trump say, well, hang on a minute, VP, you have been in office for the last 4 years.
He did it once, maybe twice, you know, when he said, well, yeah, what have you been doing for 3.5 years? So you can't really be Kamala and say, we need to bring down the cost of living. You caused the cost of living crisis. He should have articulated that, maybe with some data as well, maybe with some numbers. She was the deciding vote on the first two reckless spending bills that were totally unnecessary in an economy that was humming on all cylinders. You know, so in the hostility to the energy sector, he yelled a lot about, you want to ban fracking. That's very sensitive in Pennsylvania. But what he should have articulated is what they actually did and what she advocated, but how it hurt Americans. So again, kind of an own goal, a bit of a missed opportunity, but he needs to get better.
I suppose the pressure was on Kamala really to show what she was made of. We know Trump, don't we? We've seen it before. We've had a Trump presidency. This is his 7th debate, the most of any other candidate in US history. And she said she would be a president for all, not just for Democrats. And it seems to be, from what the polls are saying and from what commentators are saying, that she reached beyond her base last night. Could you say the same for Trump?
No, for neither, because I think Trump does have a great appeal to the common man, the lost souls in America that are suffering under the Biden-Harris inflation, the cost of living crisis. They're suffering with the migrant crisis in the towns and cities that they live in. So, you know, he really does feel for them. And what politicians always say is, I want to be the president for everybody. And, you know, look, maybe she means it, but she has a tendency to err on the side of the elites on the West Coast and the East Coast. She's part of that sort of Georgetown elite or San Francisco elite. That doesn't sell in the rest of the country. The other thing Trump should have brought up on that note is that people in California, which Kamala Harris has had a hand in wrecking, along with Governor Newsom, Illinois, where I'm from, Minnesota, Tim Walz's state, they're all leaving. Anybody who actually, you know, has the ability to leave, leaves. And so California, of course, #1, New York, Illinois, Connecticut, New Jersey, but Minnesota is #5, even though it's a much smaller state. So I think that's something he needs to highlight. If your progressive policies are so good and you think that's what America wants, why is everyone leaving the places where you have those policies?
And crucially, Greg, they're all going to red states.
Absolutely,
they are.
Texas,
they're going to Florida. Interesting. What about this endorsement from Taylor Swift, as Isabel mentioned? Is that going to change?
No, but it was really funny. I thought the cat lady comment was just, you know, it's good comedy. And then, you know, Trump, of course, followed with a meme on Truth Social, where he's surrounded by cats and a duck. It's pretty funny. I mean, it's just, I think it's harmless. I don't think she's going to move the needle. She's got a huge fan base, especially of young, single women, which they already have. They own that demographic. I wish they didn't. But, you know, they need... Kamala Harris needs single men, and married women, because that's where she's losing. So if I were her, I would find some celebrities, you know, old and married or something. I don't know. But it's you know, it's not going to hurt her, obviously, but it's not going to move the needle.
Good stuff. Thanks very much
Thanks
for your
having
this
me.
morning. Let us know whether or not you stayed up to watch that, whether you were disappointed or pleased by what you saw, whether you think it could swing things, because we are in the sort of home straights now. Not long to go until the big day.
Yeah, just, what is it, November? What's that day? September the 10th? So
yeah,
maybe,
it's 2 months, just shy of 2 months till the big day.
Exciting times. Right, let's look at politics in the UK now, because, of course, millions of pensioners will lose their winter fuel payments this year after an attempt to block the cuts failed in Parliament yesterday.
Yeah, and a total of 53 Labour MPs abstained on the vote, undermining the Prime Minister, but he defended the cut, calling it a tough decision that was needed to tackle a £22 billion deficit.
It comes as Labour's Justice Secretary reveals freed prisoners are set to be housed in taxpayer-funded hotels as part of the early release scheme. And within the last few minutes, the UK economy recorded no growth in July. That's according to the Office for National Statistics. GB News political correspondent Olivia Utley joins us now for all of this. Good morning, Olivia. The front page is, of course, dominated by the early release scheme, prisoners coming out of these jails, getting into Lamborghinis at some points, popping...
Saying they're going to vote Labour for the rest of their lives. Thank you, Mr Starmer.
Then, of course, the winter fuel situation. It's not been a good 24 hours, has it, for Labour, the optics-wise, anyway?
No, it's been an incredibly difficult 24 hours for Keir Starmer. The day began yesterday with these pictures of prisoners being released, popping their champagne corks, prisoners coming out and saying, I don't think I've been rehabilitated. I think I'll be back within days. Some of them have been put into hotels, cheap hotels, because there simply isn't enough housing to house all of the people who were released yesterday. And there was one man who's quoted on the front of the Times saying that because he doesn't know where he's going to go, he'll probably just start drinking and in a few days be back in prison. And all it takes, of course, is for one of these offenders, of which there are 1,600, I think, to commit some sort of dreadful atrocity. And then the spotlight is very much on Keir Starmer's decision to release them early. That could be seen in hindsight as a really bad mistake. Then, of course, you had this nightmare situation in the Commons for Keir Starmer, where 53 Labour MPs did not vote with the Prime Minister on cutting winter fuel payments for pensioners not on pension credits. Now, Labour whips managed to contain the rebellion, so there weren't actually very many MPs. In fact, there was only one who voted with the Conservatives on keeping the winter fuel payments in place. But 53 MPs refusing to vote altogether on the issue really is not a good look for the new Prime Minister. It feels as though these MPs, they don't feel as though Keir Starmer has won them their seats. The Labour Party was popular in the election, particularly because the Conservatives were so unpopular. But Keir Starmer himself never polled particularly impressively. In fact, he polled lower at some points than Jeremy Corbyn, who was seen as such a disaster. And that means that he doesn't quite have the same authority as perhaps someone like Tony Blair, even though he has pretty much the same size majority.
And Olivia, this breaking news in the last 10 minutes about no growth in July flatlining. This is the first set of financial figures really that is attributable to Labour, because of course the election was on the 4th of July. They can no longer sort of bask in what was beginning to look like slightly more favourable economic figures that Rishi Sunak was beginning to bring through.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I'm sure the Labour Party will still blame the previous government for these not particularly impressive figures. I mean, it's not good because it did look as though the economy was beginning to grow again. We saw that inflation, although it teetered up in the last set of financial figures, it does seem to be on a downwards trend. Interest rates are now going down very slowly, but finally. So it looks as though the economy might be beginning to pick up, and these figures show that that just isn't the case. That said, I mean, it could be worse. At least we haven't teetered back into recession period. So Labour will be trying to sort of spin this any which way they can. But yeah, the Conservatives are going to be looking quite smug today, I expect.
Yeah, the first 6 months GDP figures that Labour inherited, amongst a raft of economic gifts, I may argue, for the Tories, they were the best figures in 7 years, far out exceeding the G7. And Rachel Reeves was quick to try and claim credit of that in a sneaky way on Twitter. But now, I guess, nowhere to hide, because most of these GDP figures are from their tenure.
Well, exactly. I mean, it does bring into question again why Rishi Sunak called that election back in May.
Do you know the answer to that yet?
There are so many theories. I mean, the best theories that I've heard is that, A, he was worried about a massive influx of migrants over the Channel over the summer months, which to an extent we've seen, but it hasn't been perhaps quite as bad as he was expecting. The other thing is that he was worried about the Reform Party gaining momentum, having the time to organise themselves, get themselves together. Well, they sort of did that anyway. They managed to get 5 MPs, which is pretty good.
Farage might have been in the United States if they'd waited till November for the
exactly.
election.
So I think it's looking like a very unwise decision.
Yeah, one we'll never probably know the answer to. Interesting. Plenty to talk about this morning, Olivia. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Olivia. OK, look at some other stories coming into the newsroom this morning. Thousands of prisoners could be placed in taxpayer-funded hotels as more than 1,700 inmates walked free yesterday in an effort to cut overcrowding in jails. The Justice Secretary says probation staff have been authorised to use budget hotels if needed after concerns were raised about reoffending because some inmates are, quote, unprepared and face homelessness.
In the last few hours, Taylor Swift has endorsed Kamala Harris in the United States presidential race. Following the head-to-head debate, in a post on Instagram, she said, "I'll be casting my vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz in the 2024 election. I'm voting Kamala because she fights for the rights and causes I believe need a warrior to champion them."
Elsewhere, the UK, along with France and Germany, have announced fresh sanctions on Iran for supplying Russia with ballistic missiles. Part of the sanctions will include restrictions on Iran's air ability to fly to the UK and Europe. And it comes amid US Secretary of State Antony Blinken's trip to the UK, where he confirmed Iran has sent short-range ballistic missiles to Russia and predicts they'll be used in Ukraine within a matter of weeks.
The King and Queen are to fly to Australia and Samoa for the first long-haul overseas tour since his cancer diagnosis. They'll be joining world leaders at a major Commonwealth summit and will include a review of the Australian naval fleet in Sydney Harbour, as well as meetings with political leaders and 2 award-winning cancer experts.
And to the skies, where 4 private astronauts have launched into space on a SpaceX rocket, kicking off the Polaris Dawn mission. The 5-day journey will test new spacesuits and feature the first private spacewalk, with astronauts tethered to the spacecraft in the mission's riskiest manoeuvre so far. The mission marks a significant step in private space exploration, taking the crew further from Earth than any mission since the Apollo moon program.
I don't even want to ask your thoughts on that, because I know how excited you are.
The conversation from the last hour?
Yeah, go on then.
Would you go to, for viewers at home, I've already asked Isabel, and it was a flat no. Would you go to Mars to become the first humans to colonise the planet if you knew you weren't going to come back?
No.
No.
Why would you?
See, I would.
Just so your name would go down in history. Find another way to do that.
Yes.
Find another way. You'd never get to see anyone else again.
The Neil Armstrong of my generation. I'd do it. Elon Musk, if you're watching, call me.
All right. Well, Annie Shuttleworth will tell us what the forecast's doing out there here on humble planet Earth.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update. A cold wind for many of us through today, blustery showers across northwestern areas and a chance of frost overnight tonight. So quite a cold theme to come through the next few days. We've got Arctic air brought in by this northerly wind. The wind's going to be particularly strong across northern areas of Scotland. The strongest winds, though, have moved away overnight. We will see frequent showers, particularly across northwestern areas of England, northern Scotland, where we could see some snow showers over parts of the Grampians as well. And the strength of the breeze will make it feel colder than it is. So highs of around 12 or 13 degrees in the north, 15 or 16 in the south, but feeling closer to single figures exposed to that breeze. Showers will continue into this evening as well, particularly across northern areas of Scotland. They'll really rattle through and bring a risk of hail and possibly some thunder and lightning for some of us. And as well as across parts of Northern Ireland, northwest England, and after a pretty dry start to the day across eastern areas, we could see some showers across these areas into this evening as well. But it does look that much drier across more southern areas of England. But that will lead to clear skies quite widely overnight tonight. Still a few showers pushing in across parts of Wales, northern areas of Scotland in particular. But where we see the clearest skies and some slightly more sheltered valleys, we could see a touch of air or grass frost by Thursday morning. But widely, temperatures will be down in single figures. So certainly another chilly start to the day on Thursday morning. Probably a slightly colder start tomorrow compared to today. And this northerly wind will continue to bring showers in through Thursday, but there will be more in the way of sunshine to start the day, particularly across many eastern and southern areas of the UK. Cloud will thicken as the day goes on, and a few showers will continue to develop, particularly across parts of Wales, northern areas of Scotland. It will be a somewhat drier day for northwestern England, but again, another chilly one with temperatures well below average for the time of year. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Time now for the Great British Giveaway. It's the biggest prize we've ever given away on this channel, £36,000.
Yeah, you've been doing a bit of sort of fag packet cigarette maths this morning.
3K a month in your bank, tax-free.
Very
What would
good.
you do with that kind of money?
Well, whilst you're thinking about it, make sure your name is down on the list, because if you're not in it, you can't win it.
This is your chance.
Very sorry. Ladies first.
Oh, thank you. No, all I was going to say was one of the biggest things that have cut through in recent months on Your Say has been this cut to winter fuel payments. So many of you, rightly, absolutely furious about this decision. MPs voted for it in favour of this cut last night. We'll be debating in just a moment whether or not they were right to do that.
Yeah, this is GB News Breakfast with Ben and Isabel. Back in a tick.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark Meets at My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Right, let's talk about this vote in the Commons yesterday. The government's winter fuel payment passed by 348 to 228.
Yes, a dramatic day in the Commons. Labour's John Trickett was the only Labour MP to vote against the government's motion, with many abstaining from the vote completely.
Well, the director of Age UK, Caroline Abrahams, believes the winter will be a deeply challenging one for millions of pensioners. So, what do you think this morning? Were MPs right to vote for a cut to the winter fuel payment for pensioners?
Joining us now to discuss this is political commentator from Young Voice UK, Ben Cope, and the president of Primrose League and former leader of UKIP, Henry Bolton. Good morning to you both. Henry, let's start with you. Was this an all-out attack on pensioners? Was it right for the Labour government to do this?
No, it wasn't right at all, Ben, in my view. First off, there's the practical impact on pensioners. And, this is obviously going to hit them in the pocket. The government has made all sorts of sort of mitigating statements, such as the triple lock increase will mean that actually it offsets the reduction in the winter fuel allowance, which is absolute tosh, because actually the purpose of the triple lock is to maintain pensions, with the minimum working, or the sort of average, or the minimum working salary, and and with inflation. But of course, then if you take the winter fuel allowance away from that, you're actually not matching inflation. So that's number one. Number two is the fact that this is going to have a massive impact on people's mental health. I think the government just simply doesn't grasp the stress and the anxiety that the sort of complexity of these sort of things causes some elderly people. I think it's an outrageous move that they've made. But in addition to that, the Labour government repeatedly indicated to the British nation that it would not do this. And one of the first things it does in power is to actually do it. And then we've got Labour MPs, including 11 members of the cabinet, who are themselves drawing thousands of pounds to cover their fuel costs. On every level, this is a cruel, inhumane, and immoral step that the government has taken. I'm not a Labour fan, as you can tell. I'm becoming less so by the day. But even this has shocked me. The lack of sensitivity, empathy, and morals, and in fact honesty that's been applied to this is shocking.
What about those pensioners, though, frankly? People like Carol Vorderman, who actually, funnily enough, shares your views on this. She says in 2 years' time she would have been eligible for this. She didn't need that £300 handout from the government. They have to cut corners where they can. We're in a terrible financial situation. What about compromising it and making it taxable, for example, rather than means testing it if it's so expensive?
The previous government and this government seem to be just implementing policies without thinking them through. I think there's a significant case, a really strong case for pension reform. However, to just simply go off and deal with the winter fuel allowance, as it is simply, it's one element that's going to have a major impact on some people. And frankly, it's a lack of acumen, strategic acumen, planning and thinking amongst politicians and obviously the civil servants who are advising them.
I'm just going to bring Ben Cope in. Ben, Labour's own research from a few years back said that 4,000 or up to 4,000 pensioners would die if this winter fuel allowance was scrapped. So why did Sir Keir Starmer plough on ahead regardless?
Look, I think overall the reason why he's done this is because it's both fair and economical. As you said, there are sort of a large number of very wealthy pensioners in the UK. In fact, it's the richest demographic, with one in four being millionaires. So I think we need to move away from a system where we have sort of universal benefits for pensions, but then we means test all other kinds of benefits for sort of other members of the public. So I think it's a step in the right direction. I mean, as you said, there are clearly questions about sort of how this has been implemented. There might be some who will be caught out. Either they'll be sort of right on the sort of the margin line, or they might be sort of below it, but not claiming pension credit at the moment. So I think there are ways this could be implemented better. For example, I think pension credit, you should receive that automatically, and I think we should maybe look at increasing that level slightly higher. But by doing that, it means testing what the other benefits the pensioners receive. So I think, as a one-off, it's the right decision, but I think as we've been talking about, it needs to be part of a broader package to make sure there is enough support.
I suppose there is a question, Henry, about whether or not there is a mandate for this. I mean, you talked about it not being in the manifesto, but also there's lots of talk about how, they've got so many more seats in Parliament than their vote share, and then they're coming through. One of the first things that they're doing is bringing in a policy that wasn't even there. Could this be, and Ben was talking earlier on the programme about the Liberal Democrats sort of betraying students. Will this be one of those moments that might define Keir Starmer's tenure in Downing Street even?
I think it already has. This is not going to go away. Pensioners aren't going to forgive him for this. And it's not going to be forgotten. I'm quite sure of that. And in fact, when the Conservative Party gets its act together, I'm sure that the opposition, when it comes to the next general election, is going to make absolutely maximum benefit politically out of this. They're going to remind the nation of what the government did in its first step. But the other thing is this bizarre idea that this is necessary necessary to stop the economy crashing because the Conservatives left a black hole of 22 billion. It's the Prime Minister's choice to do this, him and the Chancellor, as it's their choice to spend 11.6 billion on sending 11.6 billion to other countries to deal with climate change, as it's their choice, to raise public sector pay by the cost of 9 billion. There's your 22 billion there, Prime Minister. This was your choice. And so the dishonesty that has packaged this compounds the actual practical effect that this is going to have on pensioners. No, it's not going to be forgotten. And yes, I think this has set the tone that he's not going to be able to escape from.
OK, Ben, last word to you. Whether you think this is the right decision or not, can you appreciate the argument that politically it maybe seems a little bit naive when, as Henry said, we're sending billions to Africa for climate aid. They've just given train drivers and doctors billions of pounds worth of public sector pay rises. Do you think politically and strategically this, wasn't executed very well?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Even though as I've set out, I think we do need to start means testing pension benefits. I think the way that this is being carried out, communications-wise, has been quite poor. I think any government needs to explain to the public that there's. I think the general perception of how well-off pensioners are needs to change. I think there is an idea that the pensioners are quite poor, where in fact the majority are quite rich. And I think if you're going to start implementing policies like this, you need to start communicating that first.
OK. Henry Bolton, Ben Cope, thank you both for debating that this morning for us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, interesting point about pensioners being millionaires. I guess on paper they are, but the fact of the matter is, as far as I'm concerned, it's you've got elderly people rattling around in massive houses where their partners have perhaps died, the kids have left.
They're worried about inheritance tax down the road. They're worried about stamp duty as well.
So people like Ben say, pensioners are millionaires. It's like, well, they're not cash rich. They're not jumping into their Lamborghinis going down to the bingo club. They're struggling. They are struggling.
Right. Let's talk about some sport in a moment. Paul Quick will be here, lots for you, but stay tuned our way. GB News Breakfast this morning with Ben and Isabel.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In South Ayrshire, the A77 is closed in both directions at Cairn Ryan after a vehicle caught fire. Diversions via the A75 and the A714. In Fermanagh, the A32 is closed each way along Forthill Street off the A4 Dublin Road in Enniskillen for an investigation. In Flintshire, the A541 is closed each way between Reedemoyne and Mould after an accident yesterday afternoon. In Cambridgeshire, the A1307 Cambridge Road is blocked eastbound by an accident between Hildesham and Linton, causing delays. In Kent, the A2 is partly blocked westbound by an accident at the Ebbsfleet turn-off, causing roughly 4 miles of queues. And in Somerset, the A370 is closed each way off junction 21 of the M5 at Weston-super-Mare after an accident last night. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Tune in to Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. GB News royalty with your perfect start to the weekend. Lucky us. Feisty and fearless guests.
Well, I'm a normal person, so ask me.
Honest opinions.
That raises more questions than a Gary Barlow tax return.
And a few surprises along the way.
Might be cold in this studio.
That is Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. 8 to 9, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's time to go through all the latest sports news with the best sports broadcaster this side of the pond, Paul Coyce.
England beat Finland last night, 2-0. The good news is that England won. The other good news is that the international break is over.
Yes.
And we can get back to the Premier League. I mean, 3 games. We're 3 games in. They do it every year. Just start getting into the Premier League, and then they have an international break. But anyway.
Sack them. Sack Carsley. Sack the international football. Get the Premier League.
Sack everybody.
Get them all. The only football I like is the international, because I don't have a club that I support, so I get behind my national team.
Oh, OK.
I get excited, but you guys clearly don't, so...
So did you watch all the Finland game last night? Of course you did.
Absolutely.
Well, golden cap, golden boots, golden everything, Harry Kane for his 100th cap, and he scored twice as well. So any doubters that look at Harry Kane, well, there we are, and he was terrific. So he's gone from 66 now, he's on 68 goals. So he is by far England's most prolific goal scorer. Look at the boots. Those boots.
The golden boot.
Can I ask you, Paul?
Yes.
Do you rate Rooney or Kane? Who's the better striker for England?
You know what I'm going to say, don't you?
No, but you're not. You can't view it through any other prism than Spurs, can you?
What, through my Spurs-coloured glasses?
You're Kane.
No, I'll be absolutely honest, and I'll put those glasses aside.
At their prime.
Harry Kane. I honestly do. Let me tell you about Harry Kane. When Harry Kane started playing for Tottenham, and he appeared, and he'd been around, he'd been on loan everywhere, and people weren't really interested. And I was in a lounge, and I still remember it, and I was going through the teams, and it was a very expensive lounge, and I was going through the teams, and I said, oh, number 10, Harry Kane, and a few people cheered, and I went, you know what? Things are bad when you are cheering Harry Kane, because I thought, this kid's never going to make it. He's just a bumbling centre-forward. And I even know players that felt the same way. He's never going to be anything special. But my goodness, how wrong could you be? It shows what a terrible scout I would be.
And arguably, I guess Harry is a better role model than Rooney was.
He's a better role model than I think anybody's ever been. I don't think you can ever fault Harry and the way he lives his life, the way he is trained as a professional. He's a fantastic fella. So we wish him well.
Didn't Harry go on loan to Birmingham or somewhere?
Oh, he's been everywhere.
Has he?
He's been on loan he'd been to Norwich, he'd been to Orient, he'd been up, you name it.
So he wasn't just a star, like Rooney at 16, banging that goal against Arsenal. He wasn't just a star, there we go. He had to really graft
That's it, because, and this is one of the reasons that you see him and see how grounded he is, because he's been out, he's done the hard yards, he's been out there and knows exactly what it's like, whether he was going to make it or not. He was dropped from the Arsenal Academy when he was very young, and that's when we see those pictures, because they weren't interested in him. And then it's hard work, and then kept going. So I'm really pleased for him.
He had to get that dig in, didn't he? The Arsenal Academy.
Oh, no, it wasn't. I swear it wasn't. But
it's the derby this weekend, and these two got a little bit of quiet rivalry brewing.
It's quite loud, though, isn't it, Ben, to be honest with you, our little quiet rivalry.
Yeah.
But
listen, you didn't reply to my tweet, my picture of Thierry Henry celebrating in front of the Spurs fans at White Hart Lane.
It's because I like you. That's the reason I didn't respond. Let's have a look at this. Now, there's a player for Finland. His name's Topi Kestinen. And Topi played for Finland last night. And I love a tattoo. I've never worn a tattoo, but I do like it. I like a sporting tattoo.
Do you?
Well, because I find them quite entertaining.
Put your money where your mouth is, then. And
Absolutely
get a
not.
tattoo.
No, I would never do that.
OK, you just like to see them.
But it's just not my thing. But look at this. See what you think of this. Now, do you know what? Can you see what that is?
Yes.
Rooney.
No, it's Jesus.
No,
the player.
Oh.
It's some people would say the same thing. Now, look, you can't see the tattoo. Can we go back to the tattoo? Is that possible?
Was it Rooney?
It was Wayne Rooney. There's Rooney with the number 10. He's a Finnish player with a fishing rod. So if you look at that, would you think, why would you have Wayne Rooney with a fishing rod?
Rooney fishing for something?
No, Topi just says, I like Wayne Rooney and I like fishing.
Oh,
that's the reason he's got the
here's a challenge
pony with the fishing rod tattoo.
Arsenal beat Spurs this weekend, and you get a Arsenal tattoo on your ankle.
Oh, no.
I wouldn't even... hell will freeze over.
Yeah, I think it probably would. So I can't see what's in it for me. If Arsenal win, so I'm going to be miserable as it is, I then have to get an Arsenal tattoo on my ankle.
I don't know, sounds good to me. Sounds like a good plan.
I think I'll have to leave that.
Essex cricket, Coity.
Yeah, this is really bizarre and interesting, and it's to do with a bat that is actually too wide. There are regulations on the size of a cricket bat. Obviously, you couldn't walk in with a great big thing like this, but Essex have been docked 12 points in the county championship because Feroz Koushi's bat was too wide and therefore illegal. 10.8 centimetres in width they have to be, and a certain length as well. So the length was fine, but there's these little measuring gauges, and they do it random checks. I mean, it's crazy. So the umpire will say...
you get an advantage if your bat's wider.
I know, but the thing is, you would kind of know if it was they're walking out with a bat like
Every
this.
millimetre counts.
Well, yes, apparently it's the width, not the length, when it comes to the bats. So the thing is, they've got the measuring tool and they put the bat into those, and if it doesn't fit, well, then it's quite frankly too wide and illegal, and Essex have been docked 12 points for the size of the bat, and they are livid.
The motion of how you use the bat and not the size of it. Why is there so much cheating, by the way, in cricket? I'm not massively into cricket, but there seems
polishing
to be...
balls.
Yeah, polishing balls, taking the thread out of balls and...
You two are like children.
Well, you're the one... I'm just going through the facts here. Law 5.7.2, as Ben well knows, the bat must not be any longer than 96.52 centimetres from handle down and no wider than 10.8 centimetres.
Girth or length?
Stop it.
We've done both.
Right, OK.
Girth is 10.
Let's talk about Aston Martin. It feels safer.
Formula One.
OK. Adrian Newey. Now, this man is going to be earning around £30 million a year. He was unveiled at Aston Martin's headquarters. Let's have a look and hear what Adrian had to say.
What Lawrence and Martin have built here, these facilities are just stunning. It's not an easy thing to do, to build a brand new factory in a greenfield site and have it have a really nice, warm, creative feel to it, because after all, that's what we're here for, to try to be creative and to come up with good solutions.
His career as a stand-up comic never worked out, so he decided that he was going to be an aerodynamicist.
Yeah. Well, what he lacks in dynamism on screen, he projects into the cars.
Very good. That's exactly why. I mean, 3 Drivers' Championship, 2 Constructors' Championships, and he is the best there is. They called it Project Pencil, Aston Martin, to actually get him. Then the reason they did that, because he is old school. I mean, your parents are architects.
Yeah.
So do they use pencil and drawing board? And that's what he would do. So he would always use those, no computers, and that's how he works. And I think they gave gifts of drawing boards of pencils to everybody.
Yeah, he infamously walks around the grid with his folder and pencil and so on.
I understand that, don't you? I like the old...
So do I.
Yeah,
so do I. And he is the best in the business. And that's the reason there's so much money, as you know, Ben, in F1. And so 30 million, it's worth Lawrence Stroll, who's the owner of Aston Martin, to spend that money on him, which could then give them the advantage. And look at Red Bull, since he left, whether it's true that the fact that they've slid down since he's gone, it is a bit of a coincidence, and now Aston Martin are thinking, he's the future for us. He's still on gardening leave at the moment, and in March he will start with them, and he'll get his pencil out, and then he'll start
And
sketching.
talk that Aston Martin could be going for Max Verstappen as well from Red Bull, the 3-times world champion.
Well, you wonder, don't you? Because if Red Bull is on the slide and Max Verstappen, who also hasn't won in 6 races now, so goes to Azerbaijan, and is he going to win the Drivers' Championship?
Who would have thought it? I hope Lando Norris doesn't win. No offence, Lando.
Why?
Why?
I'm not...
You don't like the look of him, do you?
Not a massive fan.
He looks at you funny.
I'd like Lewis to win it, or George Russell, 2 Brits. George Russell.
Fine.
Not going to have a chance, of course, but I just don't know. Not a fan of Lando.
Oh, dear. There we go. Get off the fence,
so
Ben.
well of you as well.
Yeah, right.
He does.
Yeah, I believe it. Thanks,
Right, Coity, thank
Pleasure.
you. Right, stay with us. Still to come, we'll be going through the papers this morning with Renee Hunderkamp and Norman Baker. But in the meantime, stay tuned our way. This is Breakfast with Ben and Isabel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates.
You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
With her novels Persuasion and Northanger Abbey both set in Bath, the city has taken to honouring their author each year with the Jane Austen Festival. Over 3,500 Austen fans flock to the city, many in their Regency finery and many coming from abroad. You can join the throng and follow the author along streets whose buildings look much the same as when she strolled past them over 200 years ago. Dating back to 2001, the festival is the world's largest and longest-running celebration of the Romance writer. Originally created by the Jane Austen Centre in Bath and running over the course of one weekend, 23 years on, it's grown into a 10-day festival with more than 80 events. And to tell us more, I'm delighted to be joined now by author and broadcaster Jenny Trent Hughes. Jenny, let's have a look at you. You look absolutely splendid. Well, welcome to GB News. Tell me a little bit about what you're wearing.
I'm wearing, well, usually I have a character called the Queen of All Hearts, and I have a fantastic outfit designed by Bath Theatrical. I was on the way up to you this morning. I was so excited I was going to meet you finally, and because of the trains, I didn't get to come. So I had to run back to my boat. I live on a boat, which is why the background is a bit odd, and I'm in a Regency outfit.
Well, look, I'm absolutely delighted that you have put the outfit on for us, because also someone was bringing a dress to you and her train was cancelled as well. So dressing up is obviously a big part of it. Have you any idea how many people dress up in order to participate?
Quite a few thousand.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
We're going through the papers this morning in the company of the GP and medical writer Dr Hunderkamp and the former Liberal Democrat Minister Norman Baker. Welcome back to both of you. Norman, we've got James Cleverly coming on in just a few moments' time.
Yes.
He's stalling in third, didn't make any gains in the second round of the voting, didn't get knocked out like Mel Stride. Is he in trouble, do you think?
Well, I think so. It looks like Robert Jenrick or Kemi Badenoch is going to be the choice. I can't get terribly excited about this contest, to be honest with you. I think Ed Miliband named it quite well, the not-so-famous five, when there was five of them last week. That was a nice little barb in the House of Commons. I mean, the reality is, look, the Tories have heavily lost the election. They probably won't win the next one. This is a non-position. It's a thankless position, actually, because all you'll do is stand there in the Commons, get rubbished by Keir Starmer. Nothing to be gained from it, really.
Why you surprise me? Surely it's important for everyone and for democracy to have an effective opposition,
Indeed.
to have a strong leader of the opposition.
Yeah.
It's in everyone's interests.
Well, it is, but I'm going back to 1997 and the Labour government, which had a big majority in 1997, and the Tories were completely useless in opposition for about 5-6 years. They were out of touch. They'd forgotten what opposition was. The opposition, actually, dare I say, came from the Lib Dems, who who are very used to being in opposition over the last century or so. And it was only when David Cameron came in that the Tories actually got some sense of what they should be doing in opposition. So, you know, these people who've been in government for ages, Tories have been in government for a long, long time, they won't know how to do opposition. And they'll be arguing with themselves as to the direction of the party. They've got to sort out what they believe in themselves before they start challenging the government.
Yeah, that's the point, isn't it, Renee? The Tories need to decide whether they are a party of one nation, some people call them wets, or a right-of-centre party who are getting serious about right-of-centre issues.
Yeah, absolutely. And when Pretty went out first round, I think it showed us that actually they definitely don't want to move to the centre-right. They want to carry on with what they've been doing, which has caused them the most catastrophic election loss that they've seen in such a long time. And I think the problem that they now have is they have such a small pool of MPs to pick from that it's uninspiring anyway. And then they've gone with the same old names. I was pleasantly surprised, actually, when I heard Mel Stride speak before the winter fuel allowance vote yesterday, and he was very impressive that he's gone out now. So we're back to the names that we all know, the Baddenocks, the Cleverly, the Jenrick. And people won't get excited by this. And yet, actually, whilst it is a non-position, I agree with you, Norman, it's the most important position because it's the person who's going to actually dictate the future of that party and the direction it goes in. And I suspect they're going to go the Lib Dem Tories route again.
Yeah. No, Norman, your party, the Lib Dems, are just 25 seats off the Tories. So whilst they're getting themselves together, I guess you are the official opposition.
Well, I mean, yes, indeed. And I think actually because we've got... the Tories have got, rightly or wrongly, little credibility because of the way they lost the election and all the... you know, parties at number 10 and everything else that went on, and Liz Truss's economic policies and so on. Lib Dems haven't got that problem at the moment. We've had a problem in 2015. We haven't got a problem now. And actually, when Ed Davey and others stand up and make points, it's more difficult for Keir Starmer to rubbish them, actually, at the moment, than it is to rubbish the Tories. He can rubbish the Tories every day of the week. But he can't do it to the Lib Dems. So I think there is an interesting dynamic in the House of Commons at the moment. The other thing I would just say, Ben, is that we do have a multi-party system in this country, notwithstanding first past the post, it makes it more difficult. And actually, I think the House of Commons and Parliament is better for that. And compared with the American system, where it's just Democrat versus Republican, and it's not so healthy, that situation, just two parties bashing each other to pieces all the time.
OK. Renee, let's talk about the story in The Guardian, tweets that were sent to Jess Phillips, who, I have to say, gets more than her fair share of abuse, jailed for 3 months. What are they saying in The Guardian?
So The Guardian are obviously just supporting that this is this is what should happen to you should you make threatening tweets on social media, etc. I actually would question this, not because what he did was to be applauded. I think what he sent to Jess Phillips was absolutely disgusting. He talked about her burning, her skin falling off. It was horrible. However, my issue here is, yesterday we let out of jail violent men who might go home and abuse their partners, men who have, been quite violent in the community. We shouldn't be in a position in society where we're jailing people for tweets or text messages. What we should do is punish them, but in other ways. We should make them do community service, wear a tag, those kind of things. I think we're getting to the point now where we put more credence behind hurty tweets, hurty messages, and we forget that we should be jailing people that we're scared of. And we should be scared of people that go home and beat up their partners or rape a woman at a bus stop.
I guess so. The argument, Norman, is that we've had 2 MPs murdered in recent years. Tweets like this could lead to something more serious, and it needs to be dealt with properly.
I think, to be fair to the government, they would say, I don't know whether it's true or not, but they would say they're not letting out early people who've been guilty of domestic abuse or sexual violence. That's what they say.
Well, some were, though.
Some were.
Domestic abuse was found to be released yesterday.
OK, well, that was a line they were taking, so there may be a mistake on that. On the MPs generally, look, I mean, I think the tolerance of MPs by the public at large has diminished, partly through MPs' own activities, like MPs' expenses and so on. But actually, a lot has got worse in the last 10 years, and there may be Brexit, when that's alienated people from one way or the other. And MPs are now getting horrific messages in a way that I never used to as an MP, actually. I didn't get any abuse, particularly, in my 18 years as an MP. Very little indeed. And now it's becoming quite commonplace. People think it's OK. And I think it's not OK. I agree with Rennie that locking people up is necessarily the answer. But what I do think is that we should know who these people are. And it's cowardly beyond belief for people to send anonymous messages to MPs, or anyone else for that matter, of an abusive nature. And Rennie and I were talking off air. I think we should identify who these people are, and we should be able to track them down. Go back 30, 40 years. If you had an anonymous letter from somebody in the post, which was containing some of these comments, you go to the police with it. And it's just, we shouldn't tolerate it.
OK. Well, it's one of those things that divides opinions, whether or not police should be policing tweets or the streets. Let us know your thoughts on this morning. Unfortunately, that's all we've got time for this morning. It was a really short papers. We'll try and make sure we build in more time next time. Sorry about that. But for now, we say goodbye to Renee and to Norman. Thank you. And we say good morning to Annie Shuttleworth, although I'm afraid it's not a very sunny outlook on the forecast this morning. Very autumnal.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update. A cold spell of weather to come through the rest of this week. A particularly cold northerly wind will develop throughout the country overnight tonight, and that will bring with it some blustery showers as well. The air is coming from the Arctic, hence why it's quite so cold. We've got low pressure up to the north and east of the UK, so that's brought some very windy weather across northeastern areas of Scotland through this afternoon. That will move away to the east, though, overnight, and so it will turn a little bit calmer for these areas, but still quite a cold wind through much of the night and frequent showers across north and western areas. A bit more shelter further south and east, temperatures widely in the single figures. So it will be a chilly start to the day on Wednesday, but frost will be limited because we do still have quite a strong breeze around. And the winds will remain quite strong across northern areas of Scotland in particular. Some of these showers may start to fall as snow over parts of the Grampians as well, just over the highest mountains. That will be the first snow we've seen in quite a few months. And some of the showers moving into northwestern areas of England, parts of Northern Ireland, could bring some hail, possibly some lightning and thunder. A drier start to the day, though, for more southern and eastern areas of the UK. But as we head towards lunchtime, cloud will develop further inland, and some of these showers could spread into parts of more southern and central areas of England, as well as eastern areas of Scotland into the afternoon. But I think the most frequent showers will continue, particularly across northwestern England, northern areas of Scotland and Northern Ireland, and it's going to feel cold as well. These are the maximum temperatures. Temperatures will feel closer to the single figures, though, with the strength of that northerly wind. Another chilly start to the day to come on Thursday. A frost potential as well, grass and air frost. And showers will be more frequent across more northern and eastern coasts as we head into Thursday afternoon. So a slightly drier day for some northwestern areas, but still some further showers to come. Looks a little bit drier and warmer by Friday, and turning a bit warmer into the weekend as well. Bye-bye.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You command. Good luck.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In South Ayrshire, the A77 is closed each way at Cairn Ryan after a vehicle caught fire. Diversions via the A75 and A714. Tyne and Wear metro services are suspended between Monument, both Regent Centre and Four Lane ends because of a signalling problem. In Fermanagh, the A32 is closed each way along Fortill Street between the A4 Dublin Road and Drumclay Link in Enniskillen for an investigation. In Flintshire, the A541 is closed each way between Readermoyne and Mould after an accident yesterday afternoon. In Cambridgeshire, the A1307 Cambridge Road is blocked eastbound by an accident between Hildisham and Linton, causing delays. And in Somerset, the A370 is closed each way off junction 21 of the M5 at Weston-super-Mare after an accident last night. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Good morning. Donald Trump and Kamala Harris take to the stage in the first televised presidential debate.
The former president attacks Harris on policy U-turns and blames Democrats for his assassination attempt.
Whilst the vice president claimed that Trump would have given up on Ukraine and takes him to task on abortion.
Elsewhere, the cut to winter fuel payments passed in the Commons yesterday. Millions of pensioners are set to lose the benefit this year after attempts to block it failed in Parliament.
This comes as Labour's Justice Secretary has revealed that freed prisoners are set to be housed in taxpayer-funded hotels as part of the early release scheme.
And within the last hour, figures from the Office for National Statistics have confirmed that the UK economy recorded no growth in July.
Meanwhile, Mel Stride has been eliminated from the Tory leadership race and support for Kemi Badenoch and Robert Jenrick has surged.
And in the sports, perfect night for Harry Kane. He scored both goals in his 100th game for England. Harry's old boss, Mauricio Pochettino, is announced as the new USA manager, and Arsenal won't be allowed to wear red shirts in Sunday's North London derby as, well, you won't believe it, they're too white.
Good morning. A cold wind and blustery showers for many of us today, but you can find out all the details with me a little later on.
It's just gone 8:01. I'm Isabel Webster.
And I'm Ben Leo, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Well, it's one of those days, isn't it, Ben, where the papers are actually a little bit behind on all of the breaking news overnight. The only place to get the very latest on what happened on Donald Trump and Kamala Harris is right here on GB News Breakfast, because this was the first time since Kamala got the nomination that they went head-to-head.
Yep, let's have a look at some of the best moments from last night's debate.
She has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the end of our country.
I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formerly worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain. His former chief of staff, a four-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States.
This is the one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy.
These dictators and autocrats are rooting for you to be president again because they're so clear they can manipulate you with flattery and favors.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there.
Well, it was arguably, I suppose you could say, Kamala Harris's one to lose. We needed to get a sense of who she was, whether she could withstand that kind of pressure. Did she lose on the night? Let's find out from the foreign correspondent, Sarah Firth, who joined us from the States this morning. On points, who came out on top for you?
Good morning, Isabel and Ben. Look, it was an interesting debate and it was fiery at times, starting off with that handshake between the two presidential candidates meeting for the first time, Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. I think the Democrats have walked away from this debate pleased with the outcome. What a difference a few months made from that disastrous debate that Biden had to Kamala Harris tonight, really putting on the show that it was hoped that she would deliver. She looked forceful, she seemed calm, she seemed in control. She was aiming for that voice of reason. She wanted to look presidential, and I think there's a definite sense in America that she achieved that. From Donald Trump, you saw a lot of what we have seen in the past. There is low and weak on fact, but very big on feeling. So a lot of emotive speak, a lot of big rhetoric. I think the question that a lot of people have been left with is, look, undoubtedly, I think it was clear it's the Republicans, perhaps, who, in the wake of that debate, are scrambling a little bit to do some damage limitation this time around. They wouldn't have been planning for conversations around immigrants eating pets, for example, like we saw in that clip there that you played of Donald Trump at the debate, talking about that situation in Springfield, Ohio. Nonetheless, though, the question really in the coming days, weeks and months ahead of the election, I think it's 56 days to go now, is going to be, did this move the needle on some of the issues for undecided voters? Because there is an argument, and when you were listening to it, you really got a sense that they were playing to their crowds. So people who already were supportive of the Democratic policies, who were supportive of Kamala Harris, who liked that change in candidate, she delivered. There's no doubt about that. Donald Trump playing to his audience too. So it was a little bit difficult when you walk away. If I were to call it, I'd say perhaps a draw. There's no doubt that it was Kamala who looked in control and got the sound bites of the night. You know, Donald Trump, she said at one point, was fired by the American people, an issue she said that he seems to have a hard time coming to terms with. And, you know, Kamala, as was expected and widely predicted, sort of laid out these traps at times for Donald Trump, baiting him a little bit with conversations about his rallies and the people who attend his rallies and what they're like. And you could see that she got under his skin. He was visibly irate at times. But Donald Trump, you know, as ever, he is a performer at heart. The comedic timing of the man at points, you know, at one point he turned around, that catchphrase we've heard from Kamala where she said, "I'm talking now." He said that to Kamala. Their mics were muted, of course, in between answering. So it was an interesting debate. But as I said, the real question, did it move the needle for undecided voters? And I think that's something you'll see talked about a lot here in the States in the coming days.
OK.
Yeah, bit of a damp squib, wasn't it, Sarah? And if you stayed up late for it, you may have been slightly disappointed. But very briefly, Sarah, just before we go, just in 30 seconds, maybe the debate didn't move the needle, but Taylor Swift's endorsement of Kamala Harris, will that have any effect?
Yeah, Swifties out there were waiting for it to see if she'd, you know, put her opinion forward, and she did. She chose her moment very well immediately after that debate, signed childless cat lady. There's going to be a lot of women out there in particular, I think, having a little knowing chuckle about that. But yes, certainly the Democrats had a good night, and that will just be the cherry on top of the cake for them.
All right, Sarah Firth, thank you very much indeed.
Right, should we head to UK politics now, where, of course, the big story is that millions of pensioners will lose winter fuel payments this year after an attempt to block the cuts failed in Parliament yesterday.
A total of 53 Labour MPs abstained on the vote, undermining the Prime Minister's authority, who defended the cut, calling it a tough decision needed to tackle a £22 billion deficit.
And it comes as Labour's Justice Secretary reveals freed prisoners are set to be housed in taxpayer-funded hotels as part of the early release scheme. And within the last hour or so, the UK economy, in a separate story, recorded no growth in July. That's according to figures from the Office for National Statistics. Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rachel Reeves, had this to say.
Well, I'm under no illusions about the scale that this new government faces in fixing the economy. After 14 years of economic stagnation, we're not going to be able to turn everything around in 1 month or indeed in one budget. But today, in welcoming the new investment from Amazon Web Services in the UK, in data centres, in good jobs paying decent wages and helping people train with those technical skills, is about the prize that is in offer if we can bring stability back to the economy and work in partnership with business to rebuild our country and make it better off. And that is what I'm in this business for.
Well, let's get the thoughts now of our political correspondent, Olivia Utley, who joins us in the studio. Look, the honeymoon well and truly over, isn't it? That's a series of blows, really. Yes, they got that motion through yesterday through Parliament, but that was a significant rebellion. You know, we thought that might just fizzle out. But, you know, those abstentions really will have undermined the Prime Minister's authority. Seeing prisoners coming out, jumping into Lamborghinis and flashing, you know, the champagne, splashing it about. Not great optics. And now we've got the economy on a flatline, just as they take the helm in July.
Well, absolutely. Really, really difficult day yesterday for Keir Starmer. As you say, on the winter fuel payments, this was a pretty sizable rebellion. Yes, it's true that the whips managed to contain the number of technical rebels, so people actually voting with the Conservatives to keep the winter fuel payments as they are now. There was only one Labour MP who did that, who will probably have the whip suspended. But 53 Labour MPs abstained. Now, the Labour government says that most of those MPs actually had permission not to be there, so they weren't disobeying Labour's orders. But rumour has it that what was happening yesterday was the whips were going around saying, you know, if you have any reason why you don't want to be here, then get out. So, to all intents and purposes, this was a pretty big rebellion. It's interesting that Labour MPs feel that they can rebel so soon after that general election victory. It feels as though they don't believe that Keir Starmer won them their seats. When Tony Blair won in 1997, he was so popular. He drove that Labour victory through. And afterwards, Labour MPs were so sort of grateful to him that there really weren't very many rebellions. We saw the same in 2019 when Boris Johnson won that unexpectedly large majority. This time round, Keir Starmer has a big majority, but it seems to be down to the Labour Party being popular because the Conservatives were so unpopular, rather than because of Keir Starmer himself. And in the long run, that could prove to be a bit of a problem for him. If MPs already at this stage are willing to undermine his authority, where will he be in a few years' time when things get much more difficult?
Olivia, there were reports from certain political hacks that there were Labour MPs fist-pumping in the Commons after that vote, others who were in tears because they voted for the cuts when they didn't want to go ahead with it. It just shows the divide amongst the Labour cohorts, even though maybe the numbers in the voting doesn't reflect, you know, a massive division.
Yeah, I mean, very, very divided party on this issue. And there are plenty of Labour MPs who spoke up against the winter fuel payment cut, for example, Rosie Duffield, but ended up just abstaining. So let's not sort of look at those figures and think that abstentions don't mean anything. They certainly do mean something. About that, I read that as well, about Labour MP, newly elected Labour MP, crying in the lobby while they voted with the Conservatives. I don't think that was actually true, because only one Labour MP actually rebelled, as I say, and he was not newly elected. So I think there's a bit of hyping up because of the drama in the Commons yesterday. But it certainly, by no stretch of the imagination, was a good day for the Labour leader.
Yeah, and just the analysis on those ONS figures that broke at 7 o'clock. I mean, a lot of people will say, look, the dial hasn't moved a huge amount. Yes, there was no growth in July at the first month, pretty much wholly under the Labour administration. How bad a picture is that? Because the picture was on the up, wasn't it, as Rishi called the election? One of the theories as to why he called it early. You know, what does this mean? Because obviously, again, all through the election campaign, we constantly heard Labour saying growth is the reason that we won't put up taxes. Well, we haven't got growth, so what's that mean for the budget?
I think it'll be easy to sort of over-interpret these figures. We've basically been hovering around the zero mark, tiny bit under, tiny bit over, for like a couple of years now. And I mean, as Rachel Reeves said there, it wouldn't really be possible for Labour to turn around these figures in a huge way in the 2 months since they were elected. In a way, I wonder if this might be quite helpful to Rachel Reeves. I mean, she wouldn't say this, but in the budget, she has obviously planned to do some very, very unpopular things. We have had the ground laid for a long time now for quite serious tax rises and possibly public spending cuts as well. If she can point to the fact that the economy really isn't in a good state, then it feels as though those changes are more necessary. And, you know, it doesn't feel as though she's being kind of gratuitously nasty, as some people were suggesting with those winter fuel payment cuts yesterday. So in a way, not great news, but perhaps a little bit helpful for Labour.
What's not very good for Labour, and there's really no argument for it, is front pages like this, where do the hokey chokey, a freed crook jigs out of jail on a day of shame for the justice system. Prisoners being released to welcome parties outside jails, champagne popping. One prisoner was pictured getting into a Lamborghini, a supercar worth £200,000-300,000, if anyone's not familiar. The optics for this government, on that front at least, are not good, are they, Olivia?
No, the optics certainly aren't good. You've got prisoners who are coming out of prison yesterday, popping their champagne corks and saying explicitly to journalists, I'll be back in a few days. There's nowhere for me to go, really. So I expect I'll just get drinking again, get back into my old ways. Labour will end up taking the rap for this. I'm not sure if that's, you know, entirely fair. The reason why they felt pushed into this, and perhaps it's not the best strategy to address it, but something did need to be done, is that prisons are unbelievably overcrowded. A couple of days ago, there were 83 spaces left in the UK in male prisons. That figure might have gone down in the couple of days since. And so Labour did need to find some sort of urgent solution. The problem for them is that if just one of these 1,600 or so prisoners who've been released early end up committing some sort of atrocity, and journalists will be watching like a hawk to see if any of them do, then this could be a really serious issue for Keir Starmer's government.
Watch this space. OK, Olivia, thank you.
And it was also so sad. There was interviews this morning with prisoners coming out and they were homeless. They've got nowhere to go to. And some of them were saying, to be honest, I'd rather be back inside because I get a warm bed, I get a cellmate who I get on with, 3 square meals a day. And I just thought, what a sad indictment of the country
Rehabilitation not working. Where is the prisons minister, Mr Timpson? We were supposed to be hearing lots from him about rehabilitation.
Good point.
Under Starmer. The Justice Secretary has been talking this morning about using taxpayer-funded hotels to accommodate many of these prisoners who simply can't be put up in probation houses or whatever else it might be because they haven't had the time to sort out accommodation. It's a bit of a mess, to say the least, and I think that they may well pay the political price for that a little bit down the road. Let us know your thoughts this morning. gbnews.com/your say.
Let's have a look at some of the other stories coming into the newsroom this morning. Thousands of prisoners could be placed, as we just discussed, in taxpayer-funded hotels as more than 1,700 inmates walked free from jails yesterday because of the overcrowding crisis.
Yeah, the Justice Secretary, as we've been talking about, has said that probation staff have been authorised to use these budget hotels after concerns were raised about reoffending because some had been unprepared and faced homelessness.
And in the last few hours, Taylor Swift has endorsed Kamala Harris in the US presidential race. Following the head-to-head debate in a post on Instagram, she said, quote, "I will be casting my votes for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz in the 2024 presidential election. I'm voting for Kamala because she fights for the rights and causes I believe need a warrior to champion them."
In other news, the UK, along with France and Germany, have announced fresh sanctions on Iran for supplying Russia with ballistic missiles. Part of the sanctions will include restrictions on Iran Air's ability to fly to the UK and Europe. It comes amid US Secretary of State Antony Blinken's trip to the United Kingdom, where he confirmed that Iran has sent short-range ballistic missiles to Russia and predicts they will be used, he thinks, in Ukraine within weeks.
Over to the Royals, and the King and Queen will fly to Australia and Samoa for the first long-haul overseas tour since his cancer diagnosis. They'll join world leaders at a major Commonwealth summit, and it will include a review of the Australian Naval Fleet in Sydney Harbour, as well as meetings with political leaders and 2 award-winning cancer experts.
And 4 private astronauts have launched into space on a SpaceX rocket, kicking off the Polaris Dawn mission. It's a 5-day journey which will test new spacesuits and feature the first private spacewalk with astronauts tethered to the spacecraft in the mission's riskiest manoeuvre so far. The mission marks a significant step in private space exploration, taking the crew further from Earth than anyone since the Apollo moon programme. No thank you.
And we have Tory leadership hopeful James Cleverly on standby. He'll be with us very shortly if you just hang tight. And we can, of course, quiz him about the goings-on in the Commons yesterday, the Tory leadership race, of course. Mel Stride was dumped out yesterday.
Yeah, and we'll also get his thoughts on what's been happening overnight in the United States as well. Why not? We'll get his thoughts on everything for you in just a few moments, so stand by for that. In the meantime, let's head to Brighton, shall we? Because it is the last day of the 156th Annual Trades Union Congress.
Yes, we've seen the Prime Minister receive a standing ovation as he set out plans for a new deal with what he calls working people. But now the Prime Minister announced he wouldn't risk his mandate for economic stability under any circumstances, and that bosses don't want to, quote, rip up employee rights any more than they can, as we expect the final day of the Congress comes to a close.
Well, let's cross over to Adam Cherry, who's been at the conference for us all week. Adam, just give us a sense, really, of how this conference will go down in history, seen as a success, whether or not, Keir Starmer was able to appease what should be a grateful audience, really, given the huge payouts that the unions have recently managed to get out of him. Will they be chuffed with it?
It's a difficult one. As you say, on the one hand, this should have been a celebration because this is the first TUC Congress with a Labour government in 15 years. And that was something that Keir Starmer celebrated in his speech yesterday. But the reality is the political climate and the decisions that this government are making just yesterday loom large and have made a significant impact on the mood here throughout the conference. Just hours after the Prime Minister's address, MPs voted to scrap the winter fuel allowance for millions of pensioners. And on the floor here, that was not popular at all. Of course, the National Pensioners Convention have a stand just a few metres behind me, and we spoke to those guys, and they were furious about that. Also, of course, the two-child benefit cap, that being retained by this government. The loudest applause yesterday in the hall for the Prime Minister's speech was when someone asked a question about that two-child benefit cap and asked why it wasn't being lifted. The applause for that was louder than, I would say, everything other than the closing moments of the address. So a polite but muted response, I think, to the Prime Minister, especially given the circumstances. We're only two months away or out from a huge 170-seat majority, but you wouldn't necessarily feel that speaking to the people here on the floor.
PM been getting any flack from the unions on the winter fuel saga? Because, of course, they have been quite vocal in speaking out against the move. Has he received any stick on the ground in Brighton?
Yeah, absolutely. So Sharon Graham, who is the General Secretary of Unite, one of the biggest unions in the country and one of the biggest unions supporting the Labour Party, said that the government is picking the pockets of pensioners. Really strong language on the Congress floor here. They're not happy about it at all. Now, Starmer himself didn't reference this in clear terms, just made general references to unpopular decisions, basically the same sort of sound bites we've been hearing since the campaign, even before the election. So the government knows this stuff is unpopular, but they're banking on the green shoots of growth in a few years' time, and these unpopular decisions are forgotten or forgiven by then. But for now, yes, the unions are frustrated about this, and there will be a motion on it later today. But of course, it's too late now that it's going through, and the government will charge ahead regardless of what sort of fuss is kicked up here.
Interesting. OK, Adam Cherry down in Brighton. I'm not sure the unions will be too vocal on Starmer because they know where their bread's buttered. You know,
exactly.
They've been getting billions of pounds worth of pay rises. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Right, let's find out what the weather's up to. It's been a bit of a rubbish start to September, and I think it's going to stay much the same. Here's Annie Shuttleworth.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update. A cold spell of weather to come through the rest of this week. A particularly cold northerly wind will develop throughout the country overnight tonight, and that will bring with it some blustery showers as well. The air is coming from the Arctic, hence why it's quite so cold. We've got low pressure up to the north and east of the UK, so that's brought some very windy weather across northeastern areas of Scotland through this afternoon. That will move away to the east, though, overnight, and so it will turn a little bit calmer for these areas, but still quite a cold wind through much of the night and frequent showers across north and western areas. A bit more shelter further south and east, temperatures widely in the single figures. So it will be a chilly start to the day on Wednesday, but frost will be limited because we do still have quite a strong breeze around. And the winds will remain quite strong across northern areas of Scotland in particular. Some of these showers may start to fall as snow over parts of the Grampians as well, just over the highest mountains. That'll be the first snow we've seen in quite a few months. And some of the showers moving into northwestern areas of England, parts of Northern Ireland, could bring some hail, possibly some lightning and thunder. A drier start to the day, though, for more southern and eastern areas of the UK. But as we head towards lunchtime, cloud will develop further inland, and some of these showers could spread into parts of more southern and central areas of England, as well as eastern areas of Scotland into the afternoon. But I think the most frequent showers will continue, particularly across northwestern England, northern areas of Scotland and Northern Ireland. And it's going to feel cold as well. These are the maximum temperatures. Temperatures will feel closer to the single figures, though, with the strength of that northerly wind. Another chilly start to the day to come on Thursday. A frost potential as well, grass and air frost. And showers will be more frequent across more northern and eastern coasts as we head into Thursday afternoon. So a slightly drier day for some northwestern areas, but still some further showers to come. Looks a little bit drier and warmer by Friday, and turning a bit warmer into the weekend as well. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Right, here's something that could help you with the winter fuel payments. The Great British Giveaway, £36,000 up for grabs. Here's how it could be yours.
This is your... Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
But let's get stuck in. Prince Harry, he's consulted former aides about a possible partial return to the UK as he seeks to repair his public image, that is according to the Daily Mail.
Who wants him? I'm sorry. This is, of course, he's got his book Spare. The paperback comes out later this year. Now, he's not updating it, but he'll want to promote it.
Yeah, absolutely.
He says he's not doing any interviews, but we're talking about him now, we're talking about Spare.
Yeah.
And is he going to come back with his wife? What about the children? Because apparently it's not safe for his wife and children in this country, according to Harry, even though he took his wife to Colombia, which is much less safe than Britain, in my view.
It's absurd. Anyway, he was able to attend his uncle's funeral quite easily.
He did.
Nobody knew he was coming. He said he wasn't, and then he did. And he was perfectly safe.
And he would have had the same security as every other member of the royal family who attended that event.
Yeah.
But, of course, he didn't speak to his brother at the funeral.
No, he wouldn't, would he?
So if he's trying to fix it, honestly, a funeral is where you should put all differences aside because it's not about you, it's about respect to the person, the family of the person who's gone, which was his uncle. It was his... Diana's sister's husband had died. So, yet they didn't speak. They didn't speak in the church, they didn't speak when they left the church. Incredible, isn't it?
It's awful because that moment is when you realise that we are all mortal. And at that point, all other things should transcend that, but not...
Well, this move is being branded as Operation Bring Harry In From the Cold, because apparently he's a bit fed up with his life in Montecito. Does that mean with his wife?
I don't know.
Oh, no. Apparently he's dissatisfied with advice from his American-based image expert.
Well, they've had about 10 of them, haven't they? They're on to their number 11.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Tune in to Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. GB News royalty with your perfect start to the weekend. Lucky us. Feisty and fearless guests.
Well, I'm a normal person, so ask me.
Honest opinions that raises more questions than a Gary Barlow tax return. And a few surprises along the way. Might be cold in this studio. That is Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. 8 to 9, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back. It's time to go through all the latest sports news with sports juggernaut Paul Coyte. Good morning.
It's funny, I am a sports juggernaut.
You are.
England beat Finland last night, 2-0. You know what? I think we're all glad that the international break is over.
Yep.
Lee Carsley has proved to be a successful England... I say successful England manager, an interim manager, but I think there's an extremely good chance now that he will become the next permanent manager.
Oh.
The way a lot of countries do it, I mean, Spain have done it and different countries have done it, where they've started with a manager that's looked after the under-21s and they've been within that system and then have moved on to the senior team. Now, it's worked. At first, we were thinking, hold on, this is a bit of a strange decision after Gareth Southgate's gone to bring Lee Carsley in, but it seems to have worked OK so far.
Even though, Paul, he refuses to sing our fabulous national anthem.
Doesn't make any difference when it comes to the football, though, does it, Ben?
The fans, he needs the fans on side. He needs the
I
media
think he has
on
got the fans on side. Again, we'll go over it again, but he's respecting the national anthem. He's just not vocalising.
I love how you're outraged that he won't sing the national anthem, and yet you openly say club, not country, when it comes to football. Where's your patriotism?
Mr. Leo?
My patriotism lies in N5, in the grounds of Highbury, in Arsene Wenger's iconic history and legacy of the club. Yeah, I don't mind international football. I'll watch it if it's on. I like the World Cup, but my loyalties lie with Arsenal.
I think, you know, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think most football fans feel the same way about it. There's a difference between when you see England fans. I don't know why. If there was something when the Euros were on, and then they'll cut live, let's go live to this fan park. And then people are throwing beer up in the air. And there was something for me that was just a little fake about it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Would you throw beers up there? I don't know. It was something a bit strange about it. But Lee Carsley, let's hear from what Lee Carsley said after the game. It's a good win against Finland. This is him yesterday.
It's brilliant that he's got the 100 caps tonight, and then to score the 2 goals and the way that he took the goals, outstanding. Not surprising, you know, to see him in the short space of time that we've worked with him, the standards that he's got, the level that he produces every single day. We're very lucky to have him.
Well, there's Lee.
Yeah.
Again.
Need to get used to that face, I think, do I?
I think you may well have to get used to the face. There's still a few more friendlies still to go, but is he going to get that? I mean, the thing is, also the FA have got to think about money. You think, well, if we go and get some big-name manager, this is going to cost us a fortune. You know, Carsley's in there, and he seems to be doing a good job so far. I think probably the lack of names that have been mentioned around this now since Gareth Southgate left, nobody's mentioning anybody.
Well, who else could do it? Who is that? Jurgen Klopp, maybe?
Klopp would be great, but he's not going to do it. Pep Guardiola's at Manchester City. Do you want a foreign manager? I mean, blimey, if you're worried about him singing the national anthem, you don't want a foreign manager as well, do you?
Yeah, no.
But then you've got Eddie Howe at Newcastle. I think they're going to stick with, if things go well with Lee Carsley, then there's no reason to change. I think that's the way it's going to be. Harry Kane, 100th cap yesterday, 2 more goals, puts him even further in front of Wayne Rooney. So it was his 67th and 68th goal. He got a gold cap for the 100th appearance. He was in gold boots.
It was poetic, wasn't it?
It was, but he's not really a gold boots kind of guy.
He's not,
really,
but it was his golden moment, so we'll let him off.
Look at that. Look at those boots.
He's a golden boy, really. Top role model, great family, nice kids, nice wife.
And I actually think, Ben, that I think I've won you over when it comes to Harry Kane.
No,
I've always to have a love for Harry Kane.
I've always really respected him. I never thought he was the best. He's a great finisher, of course, but I've never thought he was. I mean, during the Euros, he was playing far. I mean, he didn't really perform, did he?
No, he didn't.
Playing far too deep, trying to get the ball, wasn't really getting many touches. But look, as a role model and a player, the stats speak for themselves. He's obviously. He's been with his wife a long time as well, and I really like that. She's not your typical wag. She's just a beautiful, normal woman.
He's not in the papers for all the wrong reasons, which
Correct.
we like. It's quite rare.
Dedicated to his work, dedicated to his family. He's a good man.
What about Mauricio Pochettino?
Yes, Mauricio Pochettino, with the worst song, by the way, that he had when he was at Spurs. There was the Mauricio Pochettino song, and I don't know whether the Americans will sing it, and it's Mauricio Pochettino, he's magic, you know. And I was listening, and I'm thinking, what on earth is this? It doesn't even make any sense, but it's the old pilot song from the 70s. Oh, he's magic, you know. So they were trying to sing that, but Spurs fans were singing it really badly. So that's his song. I don't know whether the Americans are going to sing it. I don't know whether they're familiar with it. But there's Mauricio. He's now taken over as the US manager, which is going to take them to the World Cup, which is they're hosting it along with Mexico and along with Canada. Good time to be in the States. How it's going to work career-wise, he's probably going to make quite a few quid out of it, or dollars. But what happens after that? I don't know whether he then, if he doesn't have any success...
What's got you giggling?
Sorry, I just don't know what we're showing in that footage, but it looked like he was sniffing his hand, and then he passes his hand to his colleague to sniff. What on earth
are you saying there's some dodgy deal going on there, sounding like?
Well, we can watch it again.
I tell you what was happening.
Thing I've ever seen.
I tell you what was happening. It was him with his assistant, Jesus Perez, we saw. And he had a clipboard and he was talking to him, but what he was doing, and this is the football thing, you know when they talk and then you see them go like that, so you can't lip read what they're saying.
Hand. It was very
There was
strange.
no hand sniffing.
Paris?
It was purely talking like this.
It's quite odd.
I hate the way they do that. As if anyone really cares.
Watch this. What is he up to? He walks along.
He's got.
Maybe
there's the clipboard.
Yeah, he's having a good chat.
There's Jesus. There to the left.
Goes for a sniff.
Oh yeah.
What's he doing?
I don't know.
If you are listening on the radio, check it out on our app. You can watch
I think it's the clipboard.
A bit odd.
No, he does it again here. Watch this. Oh, he rubs his nose.
He's got a bit of a runny nose situation going on.
Maybe a little cold there.
Maybe with his new contract he can sort out his personal hygiene.
Maybe that's it. I always found him to be a very clean man. I'm very surprised.
Well, there we go.
Stiff my hand, Mauricio Pochettino. There we are. How about that? So anyway, he's the new American head of American football now. When I say American football, I mean soccer. And Emma Hayes, who, ironically, she was at Chelsea as well. She's in charge of women's.
OK.
I found that really exhausting.
Yeah. On that bum note, we will...
Say goodbye.
Segue to the break. Thank you, Paul Coytes.
Arsenal Spurs, by the way.
Good luck this weekend.
And to you.
You're going to need it.
You know what we're going to say? May the best team win. Yeah. May the best team on the day win.
I think Spurs might win. We're without Odegaard and Declan Rice.
Could be awkward on Monday. Spare a thought for me. I'll sit that side, maybe. We'll see how it goes. Thanks very much. Got you to see you later. Look, stay with us. Still to come, we're going through the papers. Got Renee Hunderkamp and Norman Baker for a proper, decent look through the papers, because it's been a bit short earlier on in the programme. Not this time. See you in a sec.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In South Ayrshire, the A77 is closed each way at Cairn Ryan after a vehicle caught fire. Diversions via the A75 and A714. Tyne and Wear Metro services are suspended between Monument and both Regent Centre and four-lane ends because of a signalling problem. In Fermanagh, the A32 is closed along Forthill Street between the A4 Dublin Road and Drumclay Link in Enniskillen for an investigation. In Flintshire, the A541 is closed each way between Riedemoyne and Mould after an accident yesterday afternoon. In Cambridgeshire, the A1307 is closed eastbound from Hildesham to Linton after an accident causing delays. On the M1 in Bedfordshire, 2 out of 3 lanes are closed northbound after an accident between junctions 12 and 13 towards Bedford causing queues. And in Somerset, the A370 is closed off junction 21 of the M5 at Weston-super-Mare after an accident last night.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Right, we're going through the papers with Renee Hunderkamp and Norman Baker. Welcome back, guys. Let's talk about this ultimate bolt hole. Now, I'm imagining, you know, somewhere in the Cotswolds, a roaring fire, lovely country walks. Not so, Norman. What's this in the Mirror today, page 25?
This is in Wormhill,
in Derbyshire, Wormhill. And we've got a housing shortage in this country, as we all know. And part of the answer, apparently, is to buy a nuclear bunker. There's one up for sale in this place in Derbyshire. And it comes complete. So it only fits 3 people, but it comes with the original telephone, instructions for equipment to be used in the event of a nuclear attack, including a hand-operated siren, very useful. And it's also got a log burner, velvet curtains and a chemical toilet. So if you want to live somewhere unusual, here's your bunker in Derbyshire.
It looks a bit seedy, Norman.
I'm thinking, who was that guy who sort of imprisoned people? Fritz.
Can we see this?
Fritz. Yes. Looks a bit Fritzy.
We'll get a picture on screen. Fritzl.
Joseph. Fritzl, yeah.
Was his daughter.
I love the idea of buying a nuclear bunker. I've actually looked at some on Rightmove in recent years, just out of curiosity. But this looks a little bit seedy. Reminds me of Amsterdam or something.
I mean, you'd really have to like the 3 people, the 2 people that share it with you, wouldn't you?
Well, yes.
I've always said if there was a nuclear war, the best thing to do is run towards the epicentre. You don't want to be in a bunker, being left behind, the only human to survive.
Well, you would have velvet curtains. Let's look on the bright side.
Oh, gosh. Norman, let's link it onto the story, which I actually cannot believe, that actually peaches are being sold from Fukushima, which we all know to be the centre of the nuclear disaster in Japan. Where? Where can you get your hands on these? Oh, of course,
Harrods,
pay a fortune for
Are they extra big?
Where else would you... No, they've got 2 stones. Where else would you go for nuclear peaches? These are luxury peaches, according to the paper. Sakura peaches, which apparently are £80 for 3. £80 for 3. Especially nuclear treated.
See, I thought I was being ripped off in Croatia this summer when I had to pay €8 for 4 peaches. I thought that was daylight robbery.
Goodness me.
But 80 quid for 3.
Yeah, but they come in a box. You get a box.
You know what? If you're stupid enough to pay it, then you get what, Fukushima can give
comes
you.
Your way.
You could take them to your nuclear bunker and have them there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think these firms like Harrods and Selfridges, they always do these kind of food stunts. I remember in yesteryear, Selfridges having the world's most expensive sandwich, which was something like £300 for Wagyu beef or something.
And there's always people with enough money and not enough sense to buy them.
Renee, this is a really interesting story. Page 13 of The Sun, and this is the surrogate mother winning a landmark legal case. Now, we've seen surrogacy up in recent years. This is, she was the birth mother for a gay couple, but she's now won visitation rights.
She has. So this is really interesting, and I thought this was interesting because I really struggle with surrogacy as an idea, because I do think, again, we are reducing women to a body part, and we're also pretending that natural feelings don't exist. And when you've given birth to a child, your natural feeling, I'm sure you'll agree with me, is to protect and hold close that child. It's mothering, it's maternal. So in surrogacy, we're saying that doesn't exist. You will have this baby and you will hand it over. And I understand that some women don't necessarily feel like that, or they need the money and so they enter a deal. But this gay couple took it one step further. They decided to renege on a deal that they'd made with her where they said she could have contact with the child that was biologically hers. It was her egg.
Oh, right, OK.
And she wouldn't have that. She wanted to play a part in her son's life. The couple told her that there was no vacancy in the family unit for her to occupy and that their son was being raised in a motherless family. And that by insisting that she see the child, she was saying to the world and would be saying to their son that a gay family is incomplete or inadequate. Well, the judge didn't agree with them eventually and told them that they couldn't deny that all children come from a mother, that there is no such thing as a motherless child. And I think this should open up the debate about how gay couples go about having a family. And I have no problem with gay couples having a family, of course I don't. But maybe adoption is the way rather than surrogacy. I don't know. But I think it definitely opens up a big ethical question over the role of mother and our desire as a society to get rid of the word mother.
I think because it's a gay couple, this is particularly... almost people can understand that the birth mother, it was biologically her child as well. They might understand her case. But I think of the case of my best friend. She's sadly died now when her child was 2. But she had cystic fibrosis and she couldn't have a child herself. And she was able to, after 10 years of trying and multiple failures through surrogates, to have a baby. And, that baby was hers. She was the mother. It was her egg. but she didn't birth the child. There you have technically, in your words, two mothers. What happens there? Luckily, they had a very friendly relationship, and the surrogate continued to visit and provide breast milk and things.
I'm torn over it, but I think this determination to erase the role of a mother, to erase the feelings of a mother, and in many, many NHS buildings, to erase the word mother is dangerous. And I think this case raises it as an area to discuss.
Interesting, Norman. We're just fast running out of time before a break.
Okay.
But yeah, do you think we need, or children, the optimal childhood is being raised by a mother and a father both?
Well, I think that's the natural way. In fact, you can't deny it's a natural way. And I was thinking earlier on when the story came up that tangentially, look at what happened in Ireland in the 19th and 20th centuries, where single mothers who gave birth had their children taken away. What a horrible thing to happen.
I do, though, have a gay friend who was on holiday with this morning. He's married and has two children through surrogacy. Absolutely fantastic parents. And both of them adored and loved those children and met those needs of the kids. So.
Yeah, I think to refer to the point she was making was that that's not about how the children are raised, it's about the difference between adoption and surrogacy, which I think is a valid point.
Yeah, one of my favourite shows, actually, at the moment is Long Lost Families. You've seen that with Davina McCall, Nikki Campbell. They retrace kids who have been separated at birth, children who have been separated at birth, siblings, people who had to give up their children for adoption at, say, a young age. Very emotional. Love it. One of my favourites. Anyway, still to come, we'll be staying with Norman and Renee for the rest, of today's stories. This is GB News Breakfast with Ben and Isabel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it?
Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Many happy memories, and 9 in 10 Brits say certain foods evoke feelings of childhood nostalgia, with the mousse-like powdered dessert, Angel Delight, the most loved. Joining us now...
Surprised by that.
Yeah, well, Angel Delight.
I'm surprised it's number one. Yes, very surprised. Well, to talk us through all of this is creator of the Crazy Sexy Food podcast, Hannah Harley-Young. Morning.
Hi. I've brought a selection of things that really define my childhood, particularly the Viennetta ice cream. And I have brought you some butterscotch Angel Delight.
Yay!
I'm going to expose myself live on camera and say that I've never tried Angel Delight.
Hannah?
I know. I don't know what that says about me.
I thought that was apple puree, actually. I'm so excited. Is it good? Here we go.
My goodness.
Did I make it okay?
Oh, yeah. But to be fair, Hannah, it's not that hard to make.
Well, what is it, though? That's what's so funny about Angel Delight.
It's chemicals. It's just chemicals in a bag.
I mean, it's a load of additives, which, I mean, one thing that's also really interesting about all these nostalgic foods when you look at them is that a lot of things have been discontinued over the years.
Oh, dear.
So it makes you wonder, how did this one kind of get through the cracks?
Angel Delight came out number one, didn't it?
It did come out as number one. And also sort of in the top 5 was fish and chips, something I still eat today. Fish fingers, still a staple of my diet. Mr. Whippy, in that same survey, they said that 95% of people find that a taste from their childhood will take them back more than looking at a photo. And that's something that's really interesting for me, and it's the basis of everything that I do, and the reason really why I set up Crazy Sexy Food, or one of the reasons, should I say, was that I love this concept of memories of food. You know, I've interviewed hundreds of people over the past 5 years, and when I get to that question, you actually see their face relaxing, and there's something that it evokes emotion.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Tune in to Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. GB News royalty with your perfect start to the weekend. Lucky us. Feisty and fearless guests.
Well, I'm a normal person, so ask me.
Honest opinions that raises more questions than a Gary Barlow tax return. And a few surprises along the way. Might be cold in this studio. That is Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. 8 to 9 only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Coming up to 10 to 9 this morning, we're in the company of Norman Baker and Renee Henderkamp, going through what's inside your Wednesday newspapers. And Norman, you've chosen this inside the Metro, page 7, about You Only Live Twice. Tell us more.
It's not a James Bond story.
Okay.
It's about people who think they can be recreated or reawakened after they've died. So someone has had their body flown to the US and deep frozen in the hope of a reawakening. It's a 750-mile journey. Obviously, there's no guarantee, and you don't get your money back if you don't wake up, do you? So it's a bit of a waste of money in that sense.
Exactly.
You don't need it, really.
You can't lose.
There's 250 people who have been housed since 1977 in this place in the States, in Detroit, at minus 196 degrees Celsius. I can't help thinking that, well, first of all, there's no chance you're going to wake up. But beyond that, suppose you did in 200 years' time, and you'd have a heart attack, wouldn't you? Because the world would have changed so much.
What do you think the world would look like, Renee, in 200 years' time?
Well, I think if it carries on going the way it's going and it's all Orwellian dystopia, it will be absolutely horrific, and I wouldn't want to wake up to it, Ben, would you?
I'd quite fancy this, yeah.
Would you?
Yeah.
You and my husband both.
You could wake up in your nuclear bunker.
Do you know what? I wonder if this is a male-female thing. It's like going to space. Lots of my male friends would love to just go to space, and I'm like, no, I'm really not interested.
Absolutely could not care less, / think it's a ridiculous waste of money. But you were just saying to me you would like to stay young forever.
Of course.
Whereas I think I'm embracing getting older, and I want to see my grandchildren be born, grow up, go to university, get married.
I want to do that, but I want to do it in an absolutely healthy way, be as healthy as I probably was 10 years ago, and not get up and my hips hurt, my thumbs hurt.
No, they don't.
I know, you are the epitome of health. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, Norman, would you go to space?
To space?
Well, we were having a discussion earlier. I'm going to reignite it now. Okay. Would you go to Mars to be the first humans to colonise Mars if you knew you weren't going to come back, but in return you'd have the legacy of...
No!
You answer. Oh, no. I thought you were going to say yes, because as a former transport minister, you'd enjoy the experience.
I think I want a return ticket if I went to Mars. Or I'd have a Mars bar. I'd have a Mars bar rather than go to Mars, I think.
Yeah, just me then.
Yeah, just you. Right, let's talk about Afro hair, Renee. This is just inside the Times, page 3. Should be legally protected,
yes,
says this letter to MPs.
Again, this is a story where I sit in two ways on this. I think, of course, children should be able to wear their hair that marries with their culture and they feel comfortable with. And I don't think any child should be at school and be made to feel that or excluded. And it is young black boys that often get excluded for having Afro hair. Having said this, I don't think we should legislate to make hair a protected characteristic, which is what the suggestion is. I think that government is interfering in our lives far too much on so many things, and this should be down to the sense of the school and also the parents, because there are some of these cases where the parents are pushing things quite far. This is about respect between parents, schools and rules.
But why are... I don't understand this. Why are children getting excluded for having Afro hair? Surely it's just their hair, isn't it?
So there are some schools that have said that it's against their policy, that it's too big, that it's dangerous.
Can you have Afro hair that isn't big? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
why couldn't you just have it in a neat way? That seems to be within the rules and allowing people to
because what
be
you've
themselves.
Just said is the problem. So the moment you say in a neat way, someone says, well, I think this is neat, this is my natural hair, you're telling me that I have to do something with it. And I understand all of those arguments, and obviously as a mother of a child with fairly Afro hair, I completely get it. But I'm sick and tired of the government legislating.
Did you have to battle with that, though, when your son was going through school?
No, he always had it short.
He had it short and neat.
Now he has dreadlocks.
OK, fair enough.
Live and let live, I think, is where we start from that basis. And I agree the government shouldn't be interfering in matters like this. And the trouble is, with the interfere in this and don't interfere in something else, then by definition that becomes permissible because they haven't done anything about it. I mean, having said that, there's always been rules about what you wear at school and how you look. I used to have to write out the school rules many times having long hair, believe it or not, when I was at school.
You had long hair?
Of course, I had longer.
talking
What you used to do. What you used to do. It couldn't be above your. Had to be above your collar. So we would wrap it up in pencils to get to school. And then as soon as
photographic evidence of this.
Sounds quite rotten. Do you know, it's funny that there was a story this week about schoolgirls being humiliated by having their skirts measured. We had our skirts measured at my school because it had to be no more than 2 inches above our knee and no longer than 4 below.
Absolutely. Apparently it's demeaning now. I think it's only demeaning if you have male teachers doing it. Personally, I don't have a problem with it if it's a female
All right,
teacher.
thank you both. Wrap up warm because it's going to be nippy outside. Annie Shuttleworth has the latest weather.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather update. A cold wind for many of us through today, blustery showers across northwestern areas and a chance of frost overnight tonight. So quite a cold theme to come through the next few days. We've got Arctic air brought in by this northerly wind. The wind's going to be particularly strong across northern areas of Scotland. The strongest winds, though, have moved away overnight. We will see frequent showers, particularly across northwestern areas of England, northern Scotland, where we could see some snow showers over parts of the Grampians as well. And the strength of the breeze will make it feel colder than it is. So highs of around 12 or 13 degrees in the north, 15 or 16 in the south, but feeling closer to single figures exposed to that breeze. Showers will continue into this evening as well, particularly across northern areas of Scotland. They'll really rattle through and bring a risk of hail and possibly some thunder and lightning for some of us. And as well as across parts of Northern Ireland, northwest England, and after a pretty dry start to the day across eastern areas, we could see some showers across these areas into this evening as well. But it does look that much drier across more southern areas of England. But that will lead to clear skies quite widely overnight tonight. Still a few showers pushing in across parts of Wales, northern areas of Scotland in particular. But where we see the clearest skies and some slightly more sheltered valleys, we could see a touch of air or grass frost by Thursday morning. But widely, temperatures will be down in single figures. So certainly another chilly start to the day on Thursday morning. Probably a slightly colder start tomorrow compared to today. And this northerly wind will continue to bring showers in through Thursday, but there will be more in the way of sunshine to start the day, particularly across many eastern and southern areas of the UK. Cloud will thicken as the day goes on, and a few showers will continue to develop, particularly across parts of Wales, northern areas of Scotland. It will be a somewhat drier day for northwestern England, but again, another chilly one with temperatures well below average for the time of year. Bye-bye.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In South Ayrshire, the A77 is closed each way at Cairn Ryan after a vehicle caught fire, with diversions via the A75 and A714. In Fermanagh, the A32 is closed along Forthill Street in Enniskillen because of a fire. The M65 in Lancashire is partly blocked westbound by an accident between junctions 4 and 3 near Blackburn, causing delays. Trains have been stopped between Cleethorpes and Grimsby Town because of a signalling problem. In Flintshire, the A541 is closed each way between Readermoyne and Mould after an accident yesterday afternoon. On the M1 in Bedfordshire, there are northbound queues after traffic was stopped because of an accident between junctions 12 and 13 towards Bedford. And in Somerset, the A370 is closed in both directions off junction 21 of the M5 at Weston-super-Mare after an accident last night. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
And good luck.
Good morning to you. Hope you're well. Donald Trump and Kamala Harris take to the stage in the first televised presidential debate.
Yes, the former president attacked Harris on policy U-turns and blamed Democrats for his assassination attempt.
Whilst the vice president claims Trump would have given up on Ukraine and takes him to task also on abortion.
Here in the UK, the cut to winter fuel payments passed in the Commons. Millions of pensioners are set to lose the benefit this year after attempts to block it failed in Parliament.
And it comes, of course, as Labour's Justice Secretary reveals freed prisoners are set to be housed in taxpayer-funded hotels as part of the early release scheme.
Within the last few hours, figures from the Office for National Statistics have confirmed that the UK economy recorded no growth for the month of July.
Meanwhile, Mel Stride is eliminated from the Tory leadership race. Now support for Kemi Badenoch and Robert Jenrick surges. We'll shortly be speaking to James Cleverly in just a moment.
Good morning. A cold wind and blustery showers for many of us today, but you can find out all the details with me a little later on.
It's just gone 9 o'clock. I'm Isabel Webster.
And I'm Ben Leo, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Well, we start this hour by reflecting on what happened in the Commons yesterday on the winter fuel cuts, and the government were successful in pushing through those cuts, not without a small rebellion, it has to be said. 53, I think, abstentions in the end. Let's get the thoughts this morning of the Shadow Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Laura Trott. What did you make of the, I suppose a lot of people are saying, as failure from the Labour Party to block these cuts?
Good morning. So I think what happened last night was that the Labour government won the vote, but they comprehensively lost the argument. This is something which has been long planned. They put protection of winter fuel payments in their manifestos in 2010, 2015, 2017, 2019, but not last time round. So they failed to give pensioners notice that this was happening. And it's the wrong decision, it's cruel, and it's going to leave pensioners cold this winter.
Laura, do you think your party has done enough to hold Labour to account, not just on this issue, which was, you know, the big one, the one that grabs the headlines today, but since their tenure started some 60-odd days ago, do you think you've been effective in opposition thus far?
Well, I think we have. I mean, obviously, myself and Jeremy have been fighting tooth and nail on this ridiculous black hole narrative that they've put out. Polling shows now that actually the majority of people don't believe what the Labour government are saying, and nor should they. And I think on winter fuel payment, you've seen the huge surge of support we've had against the opposition we've got to this policy. And that's really important because this policy, if they implement it and they get all the people signed up to pension credit that they want to, it won't even save any money. It is completely preposterous, it's wrong, and we think they should U-turn on it.
In relation to this black hole, Keir Starmer, in his sort of State of the Nation speech before Parliament opened, pointed to the ONS, the independent ONS's figures in all, sorry, the OBR's figures in all of this, where they said actually public borrowing was greater earlier in the year than expected, and that was evidence of your mismanagement. And that was also to blame for the reason they were having to make these winter fuel cuts. They were saying that, yes, pensioners are better off thanks to the triple log, but actually they had to do this because it would cause a run on the pound otherwise.
Politics is about choices. What they have chosen to do is to give train drivers inflation-busting pay increases. They have chosen to spend all £9 billion on increases to public sector wages rather than protecting pensioners this winter. They have prioritised this deliberately, and the British public know that.
Laura, how long do you think Labour and Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, has left? How much goodwill is left? How long can they keep blaming the Tories for mismanagement? And when are they, do you think, going to have to start taking accountability?
Well, I think they need to start taking accountability now. Government means compromises, it means difficult decisions, and it means making the argument for those. It's simply not good enough to just turn around and say, oh, we were forced to do that. That's nonsense. Everyone has a choice. Everyone has to make decisions in government. And what they have done is they have prioritised paying their union paymasters over supporting pensioners this winter. And the British public will see right through that.
Meanwhile, the priorities of your government was clearly not to invest in our prisons and to kick the can down the road with dealing with the growing crisis. Look at the state that the prisons are in now. It's very difficult for the Labour Party to accept the blame for this crisis, given the mess that they inherited from you.
We put billions of pounds into prisons, but you're absolutely right. Lots of difficult decisions need to be made around those. We had plans in place around foreign national offenders, around rapid deployment cells. And what I think we need to see from the government now is what their long-term plan is. Because obviously we've had the measures which have been put in place, but I want to know, and the Conservatives want to know, what is actually happening on foreign national offenders, how they plan to increase the number of people who are leaving this country, and what they're doing in terms of rapid deployment cells, those things that you can build pretty fast. What's happening on the prisons that we've got in train, how they're getting along, when we've got more cell capacity coming online. These are all the things that we're going to be asking the Labour government, and these are things that we were talking about when we were in power.
Laura, apparently Rishi Sunak, when he was Prime Minister in the weeks before calling the election, was written to by the prisons and police probation chiefs, warning of the overcrowding crisis in prisons, and is accused of doing nothing and just leaving it to Labour. What do you say to that?
Well, everyone can see that we took a lot of measures when we were in power, but I think the point is now, we've talked about this earlier, we have to stop looking back. We need to look at what the Labour government is doing and whether they have a plan in place. I've not seen evidence of that so far. I hope they do. I hope they bring that forward. And we Conservatives, playing our role as strong opposition to this Labour government, will make sure that we're putting pressure on them to make sure that they've got these things like a deportation plan for foreign national offenders and rapid deployment cells.
You wait a long time for a bus and then they all come at once. We've got James Cleverly standing by to come on in just a moment after you. I just want to ask you what you made of the results of that round last night or yesterday afternoon. Who were you supporting? Happy to go public with that? And, you know, do you think that James Cleverly is the right candidate? He wants to be the unity candidate, but he's not making many gains at the moment.
Well, look, I love James. He's great. I'm supporting Kemi. I think Kemi is the right person to take the Conservative Party forward. We've got a lot of great contenders in this race. I think Kemi has the plan and the vision for the party to take us into power at the next election. And God, we need it, because this Labour government is terrible. It's taking money from pensioners. It's not supporting the low taxation that we need as a country. So really strong opposition is what the country needs. And I believe that Kemi is best placed to provide that.
OK, Laura Trott, Shadow Chief Secretary to the Treasury. Thanks very much indeed.
Thanks so much.
Shadow Home Secretary James Cleverly joins us now down the line. Good morning, James. Thank you for joining us. Let me ask that same question to you as I just did Laura. Exclusively in The Times, it was revealed that Rishi Sunak ignored a direct plea from Britain's most senior police officers who wrote to him a week before the election, urging him to announce the SDS 40 early release measure. They warned that failure to act would spark the kind of prisons crisis we're seeing now. So you'd know best about that because you were in government at the time. Is that true?
Yeah, so senior police officers did write, but let me remind your viewers how government decision-making works. Government ministers do not get told what to do, whether it by senior police officials or departmental officials. They give advice and government ministers make the decisions. And they were advising us to take what is the easy option. We decided not to do that. We decided to manage the situation. And despite their predictions that this would go wrong in March, we were told it would go wrong in March, it didn't. We were then told it would go wrong in May, it didn't. We were told it would go wrong in June, it didn't. We were told it would go wrong in July, it didn't. We were managing the situation. It was difficult. We absolutely respect that, but the situation was being managed. What's happened now is the Labour Party have taken what they thought was the easy option, and in doing so have released 1,700 people early, including domestic abusers, including people who have multiple convictions. We saw the scenes, literally champagne corks popping, people getting into luxury vehicles to be driven away from the gates of prison. The signal this sends to people who are meant to be deterring from criminal behaviour is completely toxic.
Yeah, but
Laura's right. Government is about decisions, and the Labour Party are making all the wrong decisions.
the reason that you were managing the situation, even though you were being warned that there was a crisis in the offing, was because you didn't have riots to contend with. Had you had riots, as the Labour government had to deal with pretty soon after the election, you too would have been in the same situation, and I put it to you, you'd have made the same decision, and we'd have had the same images, the same champagne corks being popped and the same Lamborghinis being jumped into, and it would have been squarely on your shoulders.
No. Unless you can convince me that the Labour Party have already incarcerated 1,700 people because of those riots, the maths just doesn't stack up. They have sent to prison a few people, and I'm glad that they have. They have not sent 1,700 rioters to prison. The fact is that they have bowed to pressure. They've taken, pardon me, what they thought was going to be the easy option, and we are now living with the consequences. This is about poor decision-making by the Labour Party, and they will keep trying to do this. They will keep trying to say, oh, we had no choice. Governments always have choice. Government is not easy. They are making bad decisions, and they are trying to blame the former Conservative government, the government that I was a part of, for the decisions that they are choosing to make, just as they chose to give £9 billion of above inflation pay rises to their union backers, and they chose to take money out of the pockets of pensioners. Those are choices, and they are the wrong choices.
OK, James, of course, the Tories are getting themselves together with the leadership race. You're involved. We'll touch on that in just a second. But Labour, whether you like the decisions they've made since they've taken power or not, have been making massive decisions. And people are asking, Tory members are asking, where is the official opposition? Do you think you've done a good enough job so far holding Labour to account? Or have you got maybe one eye on the ball whilst you sort your leadership contest out?
Well, we have to sort the leadership contest out. The country deserves clarity about who's going to be the leader of the Conservative Party. But we've also been holding the Labour government to account. Let's take yesterday, for example. The Labour Party were trying to sneak through these winter fuel payments without debate, without a vote. We used parliamentary procedure to force them to have this debate. They didn't want any debate at all. And in fact, the committee that scrutinises the workings of the House said it was deeply unusual for a measure of this magnitude to go through the House without debate. So we forced them to the dispatch box. The fact that you had Mel Stride, good friend, on your programme yesterday, who was doing the media round yesterday morning, was because we're holding the government to account. The fact
he
you
was
had
on
Laura
our programme, don't worry.
I thought he was. The fact that Laura Trott was on your programme criticising the government is holding the government to account. That's why I'm here as well. So we can walk and chew gum. We are looking to get the leadership of our party sorted out by early November.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that.
We're not going to drop the ball in the meantime.
You mentioned Mel Stride. He, of course, got knocked out yesterday. You mentioned Laura Trott. She said she loves you, but she's not backing you. She's backing Kemi Badenoch, and that's your problem, isn't it? You didn't gain any votes in this second round. Most of them went to Kemi Badenoch. Robert Jenrick also mopping up a few of those votes. I mean, it's not going to be you in the last two, is it?
Yeah, I think it will be, and let me explain why. We always had a plan in my campaign, and the plan was to campaign in each of these phases in turn. So the first phase was to make sure that I got through to the final four, and we have successfully done that. And the reason that that was so important is because I've been the chairman of the Conservative Party. Prior to that, I was the vice chairman of the Conservative Party. Party conference is a home fixture for me. I'm well known by the members of the party. Numerous opinion polls say that I'm the preferred candidate of our party members and best placed to win back voters from Reform and other political parties as well. At party conference, you cannot hide from the media and you cannot hide from your members. And I know that I perform very, very well, both in terms of the British media, hence I'm on the television today, and our party members. And I know that as my parliamentary colleagues see that and remember that that is the bulk of the job when you're leader of the opposition, that's what will get me to the final two and ultimately onto the leadership of the party.
All right.
OK. James Cleverly, thank you very much. Shadow Home Secretary, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
OK, still to come, we'll be getting the latest on the presidential debate, which happened overnight. Bit of a damp squib. I was very excited for it, and it turned out to be a bit of a nothing burger, to steal an American phrase.
Nothing burger. Unlike this programme, stay tuned our way. This is GB News Breakfast with Ben and Isabel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This Bank Holiday Monday will be celebrating National Dog Day by uncovering how many pet owners would rather spend the bank holiday with their pet over their partner. In fact, new research has uncovered the 5 key personas that make up Generation Pet. That's a new wave of post-pandemic pet owners, with 58% saying they worry about their pet being diagnosed with a serious illness. Well, joining us now to tell us more about how we should be caring for our pampered pooches is Dr. Edwina Gildia.
Some of the interesting facts coming through that is that 80% of us think that pet as part of the family. The new pet owners who have come on board during the pandemic, there's a lot to learn with being a new pet owner. Interesting facts, as you mentioned, 1/3 of pet owners are preferring to spend time with their pet this weekend over their partner. 60% of pet owners, and dog watchers specifically calling them out, say that their dog improves their mental health, and 55% noting that improves their physical health by getting out and about.
It's also about showing that love and appreciation for these animals which don't ask anything of us but love.
That was another point that came through this research that we did at Zoetis UK, is that they bring a purpose to life, and I think that's another thing to call out. It's so important for ourselves, for society, to have that purpose, but with that comes responsibility. And that's ensuring that we do support their health, and we know how to do that as well.
If you'd rather spend your bank holiday with your dog than your partner, maybe we've got too much of an over-reliance on our pets?
I think it depends on what way you look at it. For some people, it may be a connection. I think it's a positive thing that we have, and we should celebrate it.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
All eyes on the States overnight. We were a bit disappointed. We were all revved up yesterday, ready for a big ding-dong.
I've been waiting weeks for it. I was getting ready, I was getting my coffees ready, and, you know, staying up all night, and it was just a bit meh.
It was a bit meh. There was no clear winner. I think probably most people are saying overall Kamala Harris came out on top because she played the whole prosecutor card, didn't she? And she sort of laid a few booby traps, and Trump sort of fell down and got rattled. But there was nothing sort of soundbite worthy that's kind of rocked the world and won it for either of them, really.
I think the biggest outcome, the biggest meme or viral clip is Donald Trump going on what looks like a bit of a mad rant about immigrants cooking cats and dogs in Springfield, Ohio. It was a very funny 15-second clip. Should we look at the highlights now from last night?
Oh, no. We're not. OK, we're not going to do the highlights. We're actually going to get the thoughts and summary of the foreign correspondent, Sarah Firth, who watched it all for us, just in case you didn't catch it yourself.
The question that a lot of people have been left with is, look, undoubtedly, I think it was clear it's the Republicans, perhaps, who, in the wake of that debate, are scrambling a little bit to do some damage limitation this time around. They wouldn't have been planning for conversations around immigrants eating pets, for example, like we saw in that clip there that you played of Donald Trump at the debate, talking about that situation in Springfield, Ohio. Nonetheless, though, the question really in the coming days, weeks and months ahead of the election, I think it's 56 days to go now, is going to be, did this move the needle on some of the issues for undecided voters? Because there is an argument, and when you were listening to it, you really got a sense that they were playing to their crowds. So people who already were supportive of the Democratic policies, who were supportive of Kamala Harris, who liked that change in candidate, she delivered. There's no doubt about that. Donald Trump playing to his audience too. So it was a little bit difficult when you walk away. If I were to call it, I'd say perhaps a draw. There's no doubt that it was Kamala who looked in control and got the sound bites of the night. You know, Donald Trump, she said at one point, was fired by the American people, an issue she said that he seems to have a hard time coming to terms with. And, you know, Kamala, as was expected and widely predicted, sort of laid out these traps at times for Donald Trump, baiting him a little bit with conversations about his rallies and the people who attend his rallies and what they're like. And you could see that she got under his skin. He was visibly irate at times.
Sarah Frith reporting for us there.
OK, some royal news now. The King and Queen will fly to Australia and Samoa for the first long-haul overseas tour since the King's cancer diagnosis.
Yeah, it's going to be a really busy schedule. I think sometimes they're doing 13 appearances in one day. They're going to be joining world leaders at a major Commonwealth summit, and they're going to review the Australian Naval Fleet in Sydney Harbour, as well as meetings with political leaders and, of course, 2 award-winning cancer experts, just to keep them really busy.
Yeah, nice. GB News royal correspondent Cameron Walker joins us now. Good morning, Cameron. It's going to be a bit of a gruelling week or so, isn't it, for the King and the Queen?
Good morning. It certainly is, but I think the tour itself is actually a lot shorter than you would usually expect when the King is flying, you know, halfway across the world to that part of the world, Australia and New Zealand and Samoa as well. Of course, adaptations clearly have been made because New Zealand would usually be part of a trip like this. That has been cut, and that is on doctors' advice because, of course, the King is still undergoing cancer treatment. And also, I understand that times have been factored in, despite, let's say, some grueling days of a lot of engagements. Time has been factored in for the King to rest, to make sure that his energy levels are very much on the up throughout the tour. But the King is clearly head of state in Australia, and it's his first time going to Australia as the head of state. And that is in huge contrast to the late Queen when she first visited Australia as head of state back in 1954. So Queen Elizabeth visited every state and territory, including 7 capital cities, 70 towns, in 58 days. The King and Queen are going to be spending this time less than a week in Australia and will only be visiting Sydney and Canberra. Now, clearly, the late Queen was in her 20s when she first went to Australia, and the King is in his mid-70s and is undergoing cancer treatment. So you can see perhaps why there is a difference there. You're going to expect all the usual engagements, some military engagements, laying wreaths at war cemeteries. We're also having some sustainability engagements. The King's off to a barbecue one day as well. And as you said, mindful of the King's ongoing cancer treatments, he will be meeting 2 cancer experts to do with melanoma specifically. Then he's on to Samoa. First, it's going to be a state's visit, and that's the British government asking the King to go to Samoa for a state's visit. And a Foreign Office source told me yesterday that trade, climate change and security are going to be high up on the King's power of soft diplomacy list. Of course, he will be helping the British government with his power of soft diplomacy, focusing on those key issues. The Foreign Secretary, of course, will be accompanying the King for that. And then we have the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in Samoa immediately following that. So the King, as head of the Commonwealth, will be representing the United Kingdom. That whole tour lasting from the 18th to the 26th of October.
Gosh, spanning 12 time zones, that's exhausting, even for the young, as you describe it. But for those in their 70s, that will be quite a gruelling trip. But I hope it will do lots to shore up the royal family. I think Anthony Albanese in Australia has called for the abolition of the monarchy. Well, yeah. So that could be a bit awkward. Fingers crossed it does good things for them. Thank you for now, Cameron. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Cameron. Yeah, they ditched that referendum in January to remove Charles as head of state. So maybe this is to go and shore up support for the monarchy. Nice to see the King will be going to an Aussie barbecue as well.
Quite right.
Jealous, yeah.
They're not calling them walkabouts, though, when they go to meet local communities in Australia. Apparently that's offensive.
Oh,
so they're changing that. We've had a ball. We hope you've enjoyed us. We'll be back bright and early Monday on Breakfast. Tomorrow, I believe it's Nana and Ellie. But up next is Andrew and Bev with Britain's Newsroom.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar. sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update. A cold wind for many of us through today, blustery showers across northwestern areas and a chance of frost overnight tonight. So quite a cold theme to come through the next few days. We've got Arctic air brought in by this northerly wind. The wind's going to be particularly strong across northern areas of Scotland. The strongest winds, though, have moved away overnight. We will see frequent showers, particularly across northwestern areas of England, northern Scotland, where we could see some snow showers over parts of the Grampians as well. And the strength of the breeze will make it feel colder than it is. So highs of around 12 or 13 degrees in the north, 15 or 16 in the south, but feeling closer to single figures exposed to that breeze. Showers will continue into this evening as well, particularly across northern areas of Scotland. They'll really rattle through and bring a risk of hail and possibly some thunder and lightning for some of us. And as well as across parts of Northern Ireland, northwest England, and after a pretty dry start to the day across eastern areas, we could see some showers across these areas into this evening as well. But it does look that much drier across more southern areas of England. But that will lead to clear skies quite widely overnight tonight. Still a few showers pushing in across parts of Wales, northern areas of Scotland in particular. But where we see the clearest skies and some slightly more sheltered valleys, we could see a touch of air or grass frost by Thursday morning. But widely, temperatures will be down in single figures. So certainly another chilly start to the day on Thursday morning. Probably a slightly colder start tomorrow compared to today. And this northerly wind will continue to bring showers in through Thursday, but there will be more in the way of sunshine to start the day, particularly across many eastern and southern areas of the UK. Cloud will thicken as the day goes on, and a few showers will continue to develop, particularly across parts of Wales, northern areas of Scotland. It will be a somewhat drier day for northwestern England, but again, another chilly one with temperatures well below average for the time of year. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In South Ayrshire, the A77 is closed north of Cairn-Ryan after a vehicle caught fire. In Fermanagh, the A32 is closed along Forthill Street in Enniskillen because of a fire. The M65 in Lancashire is partly blocked westbound by an accident between junctions 4 and 3 near Blackburn, with queues from junction 5. In Flintshire, the A541 is closed each way between Reedermoyne and Mould after an accident yesterday afternoon. On the M6 in the West Midlands, there's a lane closed northbound after an accident between junction